Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Genius, Millionaire and Become Supernatural World's Iron Man movie. Before we start, please go support Albro 13,000 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Prologue: a beginning told by a diary. Entry number 1. Hello everyone, well, I'll start with this digital entry of my diary, although I think it will be the only one I do, but I'm not very sure about that. My name is Issei Haidu, son of Goru Haidu and Mitsuki Haidu, younger brother of Kani Haidu and Isaac Haidu. You know what I think? It wouldn't be bad to put what I think about it. Goru Haidu, my father supposedly, since the man is not that to me, I practically never saw him feel proud of me, I never saw him smile at me with happiness, I only received a disapproving look from him, he only pampers stupid Kani and idiot Isaac, and since I remember, I think I saw a pink stain on his neck one day, maybe he is unfaithful to Mitsuki. Mitsuki Haidu, my mother, my pathetic attempt at a mother, has practically never spoken to me, only to call me to breakfast, eat as well as lunch and dinner, and to scold me or tell me that Kani and Isaac are better than me, and on top of that she doesn't know my name. I've heard her call me Isaki, Ishobu, Ink, Isek, etc. and etc., although that last one is close to my name. Kani Haidu, I have to call this thing sister, I'll basically just summarize what it is: arrogant, selfish, conceited, diva, dumb, and that's even though Mitsuki says she's smarter than me, and among other things, I practically completely ignore her and avoid her all the time. Isaac Haidu, he's practically the same as Kani, he just has that. He has to add the fact that he's a pervert, which he demonstrates several times, but nobody has noticed that with the exception of me, who did notice apart from my grandfather. Take away the diva thing, and add the fact that he's a damn bastard. That being said, I'm going to talk about the person that I can call a relative, my grandfather Stan Pines, who is my mother's father. That old man, he's the best person I know. He was practically the reason why I didn't leave this house. He's literally my father figure, my role model, an extremely intelligent, kind and protective person, someone I trust and love like a son loves his father. But of course he's also strict and sometimes a bit serious, but I still love him. Well, I'm pathetic or good from my point of view. According to my grandfather, I'm a prodigy, a genius, which he accepted, but still I do not stop studying and practicing. I'm someone calm and quiet, but when I'm angry I'm calculating and serious, keeping my temper. With those three ingredients I've gotten revenge on several people who ruined my day, obviously without them realizing it. Although I don't have to show it, when someone sees me, they will see a calm, relaxed and confident boy who always shows a smile. In fact, that would be my description of my personality, although the smile itself most of the time is fake, and sometimes it's not. It's thanks to my grandmother, so from time to time a real smile. End of entry. Entry number 2. Well, here we go again. Who would have thought Issei Haidu making another great entry in his digital diary? Well, where did I leave off last time? That's how I was telling about myself, and I forgot to say why I'm pathetic. Even with everyone thinking I'm useless, pathetic and perverted, that among other things, there was supposedly a person, a girl my own age whom I came to love, something I didn't have to do. Apparently she had also fallen in love with me. After some time getting to know each other better, we had started a relationship. In other words, we were boyfriends, although I think she was just pretending. If I'm honest, I was happy, really happy. Finally I had someone who was not my grandfather who would show me love and kindness, but one day, precisely on Valentine's Day, you know, that did sound ironic. Precisely on the day of love that had to happen to me, I was calm that day. Apart from happy, I was thinking about inviting my girlfriend whose name was Sarah Afton. I looked for her and even called her on her cell phone. So, looking deeper into the academy, I found it in the basketball court section where they kept the balls. Sorry, here I am again. I am still sensitive about it. It has only been more than 2 months. But getting back to the subject, I had found her having relations with one of our classmates. That day was when my world stopped. I think that's what they said. Whatever, after that I left the place. It was a low blow for me. I was practically just a 14-year-old boy who couldn't stop crying, literally. I had left the academy running while shedding tears. Luckily everyone ignored me. After all, who would care about a pathetic boy who, as soon as he sees a ray of sunshine, he clings to it to the point of burning? I spent several days crying, practically a whole month, until I made the easy decision. For a coward, I tried to commit suicide. Why continue living in a world where only one person loves you, and who unfortunately can't be with you for a long time? To the point that loneliness grabs you by the foot under the bed and pulls you to take you under the same. Well, in the end I didn't do it thanks to my grandfather, something opportune if you ask me. When I was about to do it, he came into my room and stopped me from doing it. After that we opened the door for several hours, almost a whole day, where I made the decision to leave my parents' home and go live with my grandfather. We practically didn't even ask him, I just left. Anyways, he didn't care that I left, so right now I live with my grandfather. End of entry. Entry number 3. Well, here I am again. I think I have already summarized my life, which is practically almost completely like this. Let's start with what happened this month, although it is not much. After I left my home, I went to my grandfather's. I changed academies obviously to avoid Sarah, added to the fact that I began to help my grandfather in his work, in the Pines Industries, being my father the owner of the same. That's where I met his secretary, a beautiful white-haired girl named Melina. If I remember correctly, she was about 16 years old, and yes, she is quite young to be working as a secretary, but who am I to say who she can be at that age? I think that here I have an image that I took by mistake once when we were resting. Ignore the horns. She and I get along well, although we are not really friends. Let's say we are acquaintances who are a bit like friends, although she is moody and a bit of an alcoholic, but I still like her. She is a nice person when you know her well. I am currently living with my grandfather in a town where I have a good understanding. The people here are not bad, they are quite the opposite. They are kind, gentle and considerate, although I met a certain Tanjiro and a certain Izuko. I like them both a lot, especially Tanjiro reminds me of when I was younger. Oh god, I sound like my grandfather. I think his nostalgic youth has already affected me. End of entry. Chapter 1. Entry, N degrees 4. Well, it's already 7:17 in the morning. If you're wondering, I wake up early. I'm not one of those who likes to be lazy for a long time, but anyway, today I'm going to the Pines Industries with my grandfather. I've been thinking about it, and I've decided to improve something that my grandfather had created a long time ago, and for me it wouldn't be bad to do so. After all, my own grandfather told me that if I managed to improve it, he could make me the owner of the investment, and he would let me use his laboratory more often. End of entry. Storyteller. After entry number 4 of his digital diary, Issei would step away from the computer and turn around, showing a brown-haired boy with honey-colored eyes, wearing a blue short-sleeved shirt with a black jacket with blue interior, with black pants, with a black sneaker with blue details. The boy after that would take his cell phone, some papers with some separate folders, and then leave his room and begin to head to the stairs, which would be lowered by the brown-haired boy. After that they would go to the dining room, where he would find a coffee and a note next to it. Upon seeing it, Issei would approach it and then take it and begin to read it. Use. Hello Issei, I'm leaving you this note to inform you that I'm in my office at the company facilities. I'll be busy, so I ask you not to visit me until 9:45 p.m. If you need to do any project, Melina has the access card. I asked her to give it to you when she sees you. Sincerely, your grandfather Stan. Thanks for the coffee grandpa, Issei said with a smile, taking the coffee and starting to drink it. I'm after Pines Industries, a large company that aims to improve the quality of life and comfort for people, a place that is dedicated to the creation of new technology, finances various projects that occupy various areas, including medicine, technology, construction, etc. It was the place where Issei goes, entering through the doors of an elevator and then walking for a while, to then meet Melina, his grandfather's secretary. Good morning, Melina, Issei greeted with a slight smile. Hi Issei, look here, Melina said, handing a card to the brown-haired man. At that, Issei looks at the card and notices something. Isn't this card supposed to be from my grandfather's laboratory? Issei asked, confused. That's right, he said you'll use it today. There's everything you could ever want in there, Melina informed, with a glass containing vodka. Okay, thanks for giving me the chance to not get drunk today, Issei thanked and informed with a mocking tone at the end. Oh, ha, he said with disinterest. Hey, change that face, or else you won't have a boyfriend in the future, Issei added jokingly, starting to leave the place. Hey, for your information, I have a boyfriend, Melina informed angrily. Then you have to introduce him to me someday, Issei shouted from a distance. HMNP, whatever, the white-haired girl complained, crossing her arms and looking away. After the kind of talk he had with the white-haired girl, Issei went straight to his grandfather's laboratory. Once he arrived, with the help of the card he would enter the laboratory, finding one of his grandfather's workplaces. It's been a long time since I've been here. Hey Friday, it's good to see you again, Issei said happily. Hello young Issei, it's been a while since we opened. Do you have a new project? A voice greeted and asked that echoed throughout the laboratory. Hello Friday, and the answer is yes. He begins to walk into the room where a completely circular table was raised. Today I will improve an old project of my grandfather, said Issei, putting a plan on the mass. I see you're going to improve the arc reactor, added the AI, looking at the plan through a camera in the room. That's it, closure, so let's get to work, said Issei before going for the necessary materials. Test, N degrees 1. Ready young Issei? Friday asked calmly. If you activate it, Issei ordered. At that moment the mini arc reactor would begin to activate, thus producing a large amount of energy, but at any moment it would explode. Shit, Issei cursed under his breath. Mr. Pine says that you don't have to say rude things, young Issei, Friday reported calmly. I know Friday, I know, Issei said, annoyed. Test, N degrees 2. Well, here we go again, activated, Issei ordered, looking at an improved version of the arc reactor. Right away, young Issei, said the AI before activating the mini reactor remotely. Which would soon explode and one of its pieces would hit Issei's stomach. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your level of pain? Friday asked, seeing an Issei lying on the ground. 0, Issei said in pain. This will take a while, Issei reported, standing up with difficulty. Test, N degrees 5. I'm ready, reported an Issei with a helmet, knee pads, shoulder pads and elbow pads included, standing behind a bulletproof shield. Okay, Friday replied simply before activating the arc reactor. It was on for about 47 minutes, during which Issei was on the other side of the room being protected by a bulletproof shield, but when the human in the AI least expected it, the arc reactor would explode into several pieces, with a nut being thrown next to Issei, passing long but bouncing off the wall and crashing into Issei's back, who would fall to the floor in pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your level of pain? Friday asked, seeing Issei lying on the ground. 0, Issei said in pain. Test, N degrees 9. Sure to continue with the project, young Issei, there is a great possibility that he will be hurt again, asked and informed Friday. At that, Issei lets out a sigh. Yes, I'm sure, so activated, said Issei, who had a black suit that covered his entire body and had several plates that protected his body. Right away, young Issei, said Friday before activating a new miniature arc reactor. And when time passed, and by the way, what time is it? Issei asked, looking at the reactor with a shield in his left hand and another in his right hand that covered his back. It has been 3 hours since the new version of the arc reactor was activated. It is currently 17:43, I report, calm closure. I don't think it's going to explode. After all, it's been a long time. He begins to take off the suit. Well, I'm going to take a break. Call my phone if there's a convenient one, said Issei, beginning to walk towards the laboratory door, but in that the arc reactor would explode and one of its pieces would hit the brown-haired boy's leg. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your level of pain? Friday asked. 0, Issei replied in pain. Time after. Are you okay? Melina asked, sitting on a chair with her legs crossed, on top of a table and with her left arm on the back of her head, while she drank another glass of vodka. Yes, said Issei with bandages and a few band-aids on his face. You don't look like it, Melina replied, finishing the glass and then refilling it. He lets out a sigh. Okay, no, the truth is I had more than one accident, but I've already managed to fix the problem. All that's left is someone to put it to the test, Issei reported, sitting next to the white-haired girl. Do you want one? He asked with another glass, but this one was empty. No thanks, when I'm 16 or 17 I'll accept one, Issei replied, taking a chocolate out of his jacket. Okay, you're lost, Melina said with a shrug, while pouring herself another glass of vodka. I still don't understand why almost everyone drinks that. I don't see the big deal, Issei informed, and then drank a glass of soda. You're still young to understand it. When you try it you won't like it at first, but the more time passes the more you'll enjoy it, the white-haired woman informed. You're only a year older than me. I'll be 15 in a while, but leaving that aside, apart from enjoying it, I would get drunk and other things, which would make me do a lot of stupid things, apart from the fact that it causes addiction, which does a lot of harm to people addicted to alcohol, said Issei simply. Touché, said Melina also simply. They spent a while chatting and having a little lunch, until Issei came up with an idea. Hey, do you want to go for a walk? Issei asked calmly. She thinks about it for a moment. Yes, why not, apart from the fact that my shift is over, said Melina in a vague tone. Is your shift over? Isn't a secretary supposed to work until her boss finishes his job? Issei asked, confused. You are practically one of my 2 bosses, and if you have already finished that means that I have finished too, apart from the fact that Mr. Stan gave me permission to leave early, Melina informed with disinterest. Good point, let's see if we meet Tanjiro and Nezuko today, Issei said as he got up from the chair and began to go to the exit. Well, I would say that the one who was cheated on has already gotten over it, Melina said gracefully. Ahaha, how funny, Issei said sarcastically. Thanks for the compliment, Melina said with a smile that showed fangs, which were seen by Issei. Hey, you never answered the question I asked you. It's about why you have sharp teeth, Issei said thoughtfully. I don't know either, all I know is that it runs in the family, Melina said with some disinterest. I see, but anyway, let's go before it gets dark, Issei said hurriedly. Calm down, shorty, Melina said mockingly. Ah, you'll see when I'm taller than you, Issei said with a defiant tone. We'll see about that, Melina added with a small smile. Chapter 2. Storyteller. And what will we do? Melina asked. Hang out, take a walk, eat something, maybe look for Nezuko and Tanjiro, Issei answered calmly. Okay, then let's find the 2 brothers first, said Melina, quickening her pace a little. Okay, Issei also nodded, quickening his pace. Time after. Hello, Nezuko, Issei greeted, looking at a beautiful black-haired girl with pink eyes. Hi, hello Issei-kun, Melina-chan, Nezuko greeted with a sweet smile, looking at the brown-haired boy and the white-haired girl. Greetings Nezuko, Melina greeted calmly. How have you been doing, Nezuko? And by the way, Tanjiro? Issei asked. I've been doing very well, with me and my family, and answering where Tanjiro is, he's over there, said Nezuko, and then pointed to a messy black-haired boy with burgundy tips. Somewhere else. You could see a subject almost of old age. This person was Stan Pines, Issei Haidu's grandfather. He was in his office finishing signing some papers until a young woman with dark blue hair with pink streaks entered through his office window, wearing a black suit with two metal plates under her chest, with an accessory on her right eye. Hello Mr. Pines, the woman greeted as she entered Stan's office. He turns to look at her. Hello Sakura, how did your infiltration mission go? Mr. Pines greeted and asked with a smile. It's gone well, although I think they're starting to suspect me, Sakura answered seriously. I see, is it difficult to get information from people in that organization? I ask, looking at her with some seriousness. That's right, the Chaos Brigade has several loyal members, but with the right motivation we could get information out of them, Sakura replied, sitting down on a large brown armchair with dark red details. At the answer, Stan would let out a heavy sigh. Okay, we'll have to be more careful. According to my other infiltrators, the Chaos Brigade is planning how to create chaos in the world, said Stan seriously. That would be the plan of several in that place, but as I understand it, there is someone else, someone who hides in the shadows and who is the true leader of that organization, reported Sakura, taking a glass of whiskey and then began to drink it. I see, try to get as much information on this individual as possible, Stan ordered calmly. If about that, apparently the person from whom I managed to get the information was murdered shortly after, between 6 or 7 hours later. Apparently someone already knows about me, Sakura reported seriously, although a small embarrassed tone was noticed. Okay, then be very careful. He takes a device out of a drawer in his desk. Take this, it will help you when you are in trouble, said Stan before throwing it. He catches it. Thank you Mr. Pines, and by the way, how is Issei? He thanked Sakura and asked curiously. At that, Stan smiles. My grandson is fine, he is getting along better with Melina and the citizens of the town, Stan responded with a smile and a happy tone. Do you think those two will end up together? Sakura asked in a joking tone. Maybe, although Melina already has a boyfriend, Stan answered thoughtfully. The boyfriend who is most likely only with her for her figure, unlike Issei who is a kind, sweet and handsome boy, said Sakura simply, until she noticed Stan's gaze. What? Nymphomaniac, Stan said in a dry tone, alarming Sakura. But no, wait, I didn't mean that, Sakura began to say, upset. Time after. It was already night and it was snowing. Issei and Melina had left Nezuko and Tanjiro in their own home so that they could then start going to their respective homes. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, Prince Melina said mockingly. Okay, see you tomorrow at work. Frozen Issei also began mockingly, receiving an annoyed look from the white-haired girl. Hey, don't look at me like that, you started it, Issei finished saying with an offended tone that was obviously fake. Anyway, see you tomorrow, Melina said, starting to walk in another direction, but she would be stopped by Issei. He held her hand, preventing a large amount of snow from falling on the white-haired girl from a tree. You're fine, he said, looking at her. Why yes, thank you, Melina thanked, somewhat surprised. You better spend the night at my house, Issei suggested somewhat seriously. And why should I do that? Melina said with annoyance and on the offensive. Melina, Issei called neutrally. What? She asked, annoyed. Look around you, Issei said, still in his neutral tone. At that point Melina would look around, seeing that almost everything was covered in snow, and in the distance she would be able to see her house, which had its door blocked by a large layer of snow, which would obviously take her a long time to remove, and by the time she managed to do so, she would most likely be dead from hypothermia. She let out a sigh of defeat. Okay, let's go to your house, Melina said in a defeated tone. Okay, and by the way, don't be so defensive, my grandfather will come anyway, after all I live with him, Issei said calmly. Time after. It's going to snow for a long time, thought Melina, looking out the window at the snowfall that was getting bigger and bigger. How's Richard? Melina thought again, taking out her phone and starting to check some messages. How will Grandpa be? Issei said to himself in his room in front of his computer. Mr. Pines is currently busy, young Issei reported Friday's voice that came from a speaker connected to his computer. Friday? Aren't you only supposed to be connected to my grandfather's laboratory? Issei asked the AI with a confused tone. That's right, but at 11:37, Mr. gave me permission to connect to other devices, including those in your home, young Issei explained Friday calmly. I see, thanks for reporting, and since I think about it, since you're here, could you help me find a way to prevent the arc reactor from exploding? Issei said and asked. Of course I can, young Issei, when do we start? He said and asked Friday. Now, I have some time before sleeping, apart from the fact that I don't have to go to school, since I study at home, Issei reported calmly, opening several programs on his computer. Chapter 3. Storyteller. Sir, could I ask you a question? Asked a fallen angel to his leader who was a demon. You've already asked a question, the demon began to his soldier, causing other supernatural beings to laugh, making the leader sigh with tiredness, so the question the demon finished leaving with annoyance. Why were we sent to take this human village? The fallen one asked in confusion. Simple, we need more territory, and since the stupid demons of the underworld only think about it, they will not do anything, since they do not even observe the humans, thinking that they are only worthless garbage. The fallen of Azazel, including him, are so absorbed in their worlds that they do not care about humanity, and the angels are so calm and absorbed in their precious heaven, enjoying their peace and tranquility, thinking that humans also breathe that peace and tranquility, that it does not occur to them to observe them. So right now and for a long time we can take all the human territory we want. Any questions, I explained and asked at the end. But all the supernatural beings before him denied it, making the demon smile. Okay, I'm glad you don't have any, so get ready because we'll attack in an hour, he ordered with authority and then retreated. Time after. Well, that's all, Issei said before receiving a message on his cell phone. That's right, young Issei, according to my calculations the arc reactor is 87% functional, said Friday monotonously. Looking at his phone, I think I should improve you in some aspects, since you don't show many emotions. No offense, said Issei, seeing the message that came to him. Looking at what it was about, seeing that it was a message from his grandfather. Message. Hello Issei, I won't be able to go home today because of work, so please avoid doing any projects and let Melina know for me that she will have a week of vacation. End of message. Heh, lucky girl, Issei said sarcastically, until a message arrived, the message being Melina. I got a message on Friday, didn't you say your grandfather would be here? Melina. You know, you could leave the living room and go to my room to talk to me, Issei. Don't change the subject, Melina. Okay, calm down old lady, I didn't know until now that my grandfather would not be home today, Issei. You called me old, Melina. No, Issei. You better lock that damn door to your stupid shitty room, Melina. But yes. After that, Issei would get up from his village and lock the door, then push his bed and put it as reinforcement on the door, preventing it from flying away due to Melina's blow. Open the damn door, Melina said angrily from the other side of the door. You yourself told me to lock her, Issei said relaxed, while he was lying on his bed, looking at his cell phone. Open it now, Melina shouted from the other side of the door. No, Issei said relaxed. The brown-haired boy and the white-haired girl would hear the loud thud of a large heavy object falling to the floor. What was that? Issei whispered in alert, moving his bed carefully so as not to make noise. After I opened the door I would receive a blow from a Melina in the face. That's for calling me old, the white-haired girl complained with annoyance. Ah, damn it, not now. He heads to his closet where he would get a weapon. Issei, what is the weapon for? Melina asked nervously. It's not for you, anyway I earned it by calling you old lady. He listens with Melina to the sound of footsteps forming on the stairs. It's for whoever came in here to do whatever they want to do, Issei finished saying, putting Melina behind him. Do you have another one? Melina asked, heading to the wardrobe. I'm sorry but no, this is the only one my grandfather lets me have, Issei replied pointing to the door. Demon, Melina cursed with annoyance. Even though you shoot, Issei, I'm your grandfather, Stan said before opening the door, carrying a gun. Grandpa, didn't you say you would be in the industry and what are you doing with it? Issei asked with a poker face. There's no time to explain, Issei, right now the village is being attacked by supernatural beings, Stan said seriously as he approached the closed window of Issei's room. Attacking the village? Supernatural beings? Grandpa, what are you talking about? Issei asked, somewhat upset. This is it, Stan said, pulling back the window curtain and then opening it to reveal chaos outside. The sky was purple with red and light blue patches. There was more than one magic circle, among them were some demonic ones. Various supernatural beings such as demons, fallen angels, yakes including humans, were trapping the inhabitants of the town, although unfortunately some were being killed, the houses were destroyed, some were beginning to catch fire, and others were already on fire. Only a pyramid was missing in the sky, being inhabited by a one-eyed yellow triangle and more chaos. Grandpa, what the hell is going on? Issei asked, upset. God jumped, Melina said, bringing her hands to her mouth, but when she said God she felt a slight headache. We are being attacked by a terrorist organization, here terrorist of supernatural beings including humans, he began to say, while walking towards the door of the room, being followed by Issei and Melina, both in shock. His organizing is called the Chaos Brigade. Several of its members have the mission of bringing chaos to the worlds, especially the human one, although there is a secret motivation. Which only the true leader of the organization knows, and that is the total domination of the world, Stan finished saying, raising the gun and then firing a bullet which pierced the head of a demon that had climbed the stairs. Friday activates the security system and scatter the attack drones and give the order to finish off any being that is not on our side, Stan ordered. While shooting more demons and fallen angels, along with enemy humans. Well, I hope you can explain it to us more clearly when this is over, said Issei, shooting at some fallen angels who were flying over the nation. You don't have any spare weapons, do you? Melina asked behind her grandson and grandfather. Yeah, here it is, Stan said, throwing him a gun. You know how to use it? Issei asked, shooting at some enemy humans. Of course I know, my cousin Justice taught me, said Melina, aiming and shooting at some demons who were creating magic circles, but they would be annulled with their respective deaths. Wait, does he have a cousin named Justice? Issei asked incredulously. Not exactly, in my family we call it justice out of affection, said Melina, standing on the corner of an alley while shooting at more enemies. Less chatter and more bullets to the head, he said. They shoot each enemy directly in the head, yes. No misses and without any difficulty. At that the three would begin to be surrounded. Issei, taking a lid from a trash can, would use it as a shield, avoiding a fireball launched by a low-class demon. Damn, when the attack drones arrived, Stan thought with annoyance. At that moment, and according to the script, several robots with military weapons would fall on top of the supernatural beings and then use their blades as fingers, killing them with a cut in the neck. I'm sorry for the delay, Miss Melina, young Issei and Mr. Pines. Friday apologized through one of the drones, which would be destroyed by a sphere of destructive energy. Oh help me, Melina said, somewhat disappointed. Careful, Issei shouted, standing in front of Melina and using the trash can lid as a shield, blocking an energy sphere launched by a demon. The energy sphere decided to crash into the trash can lid, but in doing so the trash can lid itself would be destroyed and several pieces of shrapnel would stick into his chest, causing him to begin to bleed out. Damn it, Issei said before spitting out blood. Issei, Stan and Melina shouted with concern, the latter being the one who caught Issei in her arms. Another sphere of energy was launched towards them, but a drone controlled by Friday would get in the middle, preventing the two teenagers from suffering any further harm, but in itself, it would not help them at all when they were thrown against the wall of the alley, falling into unconsciousness, and then Melina along with the other drones. Which were destroyed into pieces and Paulina being knocked out by a fallen angel. Chapter 4 to work. Storyteller. There, that's all, Melina said, with blood on her clothes and hands, and a little on her left cheek. In front of her was an Issei lying on an improvised stretcher, and on the other side was Stan, who was placing a device on his chest. Who would have thought we would be in this situation? He said, as they finish installing the device. What is that? Melina asked, starting to clean herself. It's a magnet that will prevent the shrapnel from reaching your heart, Stan explained, beginning to clean himself up. It's good that Melina-san knew medicine, said a relieved Tanjiro. Obviously I will know medicine, I study to be a doctor, although I also study for other careers if I don't succeed in the others, said Melina, already clean. Now we just have to wait for Issei to wake up, Stan said. And Nezuko, Melina asked Tanjiro. I don't really know, a fallen angel took her away, said Tanjiro, worried about his sister. I think I know why they took her, he began to say. They are getting the attention of the other two. I have reports that those who attacked us and who captured us have a syringe that slowly and painfully transforms a person into a demon, although I don't know exactly if that is the reason why they took her, Stan explained seriously. So my sister will be turned into a demon? Tanjiro asked, surprised. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know, although I do know one thing, and that is that they attacked us for more territory for their organization, said Stan, beginning to walk to a metal door and look through it. Somewhere else. The Nezuko could be seen tied by her arms and legs on a tilted stretcher. In front of her was a doctor scientist who was apparently a woman who belongs to the Chaos Brigade. Okay, darling, let's get to work now, said the scientist with a smile to an unconscious Nezuko, while she had a golden syringe with a red liquid which had bubbles of the same color but of a different shade. Change of scene. Hey, I remember yesterday my brother told me something, said a demon to a yokai. And that's it? The yokai asked curiously. Well, he told me about a dimensional gap that opens at different times, but he managed to find the place and time where it will open, so I started to think, what if we use one of the humans we captured to see what's on the other side? The demon suggested with an evil smile which was shared with the yokai. Time after. Ugh, what the hell happened? Issei complained, being received by a hug from three people. Issei, you had us worried, Stan said with relief. Ah damn, what happened, or well, what happened after I received that attack? Issei asked, disoriented. Well, Stan began but would be interrupted by Melina. Because of your idiot who almost killed you, we were taken down little by little. After that they put us in this room. They want us to make weapons. Specific ones are well that you two, that is, your grandfather and you, make weapons while me and Tanjiro help you," Melina explained. "I see, and Nezuko?" Issei asked. "She was taken, but we don't know why," Stan said seriously. He lets out a sigh. "I see, he realizes something, and this?" Issei asked, looking at the magnet on his chest. "Well, that's something that's currently keeping you alive. After the explosion with this piece of garbage, several pieces of shrapnel were embedded in your chest. As strange as it sounds, they didn't stop with each passing second, they were embedded deeper into your skin, so we did this. Since when we tried to take them out they only became embedded further," explained Stan with concern and seriousness. "Okay, that means I'm going to die, right?" Izuku asked sarcastically. "Yes," Melina said simply. "Okay, let's get to work," said Issei, getting up from the stretcher with some difficulty. "Wait, you don't have to try too hard," Tanjiro said with concern. "Calm down, I'm fine, we better spend our time finding a way out of here," Issei said authoritatively. "Okay, but we'll go slow," Stan said. "We'll go slowly because of what I have in my chest, so ask for materials, because I don't plan on being with this thing in my butt for long," Issei said, starting to walk to a table, taking something out of his jacket. "And what will you use to change the battery source of the magnet?" Melina asked. "This," Issei said, putting the arc reactor blueprints. At that Stan would say, "How elegant France is," Stan said in surprise. Scene jump started. You could see how Issei and Tanjiro were disarming a bomb. "Are you sure about this is Issei-san?" Tanjiro asked nervously. "Of course I am, Tanjiro, you just watch and let the master take care of it," said Issei, before starting to hit the tip of the missile, which would fall, and Issei would take something out from inside, then go to a table next to Tanjiro. "What is that?" asked Tanjiro. "It's 1.5 grams of palladium, I need at least about 1.6, so take apart the others," said Issei, being seen by Ichibi Tanjiro, who said hi. "But Stan." He was forming a mold with a clamp giving it shape, where Issei and Tanjiro would arrive with the palladium. "Do you have it yet?" Stan asked, looking at them. "If we have it here," they both said, each taking out a quantity of palladium. Melina would arrive with a pair of tweezers. "Okay, put it in the mold so I can melt it while you do the rest," said Melina, taking the mold with palladium and then putting it in the fire. "Time after." "Paused, be careful, we only have one chance," said an Issei to a Melina who was carrying the mold being held carefully by the tweezers. "My hands are firm, how do you think you're still alive?" said Melina, approaching a table that had another mold. "Good point," said Issei, watching how the white-haired girl poured the melted palladium into the annoyance. After that they would wait until it cooled down so that Issei could then take out a palladium ring with some tweezers and then put it on a piece he had on his left hand. After that, Stan would be seen soldering on a silver ring which had copper wires with several pieces in front of him. And finally, Issei would be seen turning on a machine, causing the finished arc reactor to start working. "A miniature arc reactor?" Melina asked, surprised. "That's right, it produces enough energy for 50 lives and for something more for about 15 minutes," said Issei, before placing 3 somewhat translucent leaves on the mass, placing one on top of the other, forming a plane. "And what is this?" Melina asked, looking at the map. "They wanted a weapon, so we'll give them one," Issei said with a smile. Chapter 5. Storyteller. "And why do I have to use it?" Issei complained with the arc reactor on his chest. "Why would that be?" Melina began sarcastically. "I think it's because the power source needed to use the armor is there in your chest, and since it's also saving your life there's no other way, so you'll have to be the one to use the armor, and don't even think about trying to replace the arc reactor with a car battery. Because when you changed the battery for the reactor you threw the battery in the trash, and I'm not going to let you put something dirty on your chest, considering that you can get injured and die," Melina said sarcastically and annoyed. Both of them were behind a column, while Stan is distracting the Chaos Brigade. "Okay, you have a very good point, do you already know which keys to press?" Issei asked, starting to walk carefully towards the armor, which was hidden and had several cables connected to it. The same cables were connected to an old computer that was difficult for them to get. "If I already know them by heart in the order, I also know the time I have to wait," Melina answered in a whisper. "Okay, I'll get into the armor and you start putting the commands, after that hide," Issei ordered while carefully opening the armor, being helped by Melina. "But Stan and Tanjiro. You saw how the weather is today, it's snowing like there's no tomorrow," Tanjiro said with a smile. "It's not snowing today, in fact today is hot and sunny," answered a fallen angel monotonously. Well, I was wrong," said Tanjiro somewhat nervously. "Whatever, let's use the old man to send him to the other dimension, after all, we already have enough of the brat," said the same yokai who had spoken to the demon about the dimensional rift. After that they would knock Stan unconscious, leaving Tanjiro in the room. Okay, this is bad, he said to himself, going to where Issei and Melina were. Guys, they took Stan to send him to another dimension, said Tanjiro, arriving with the brown-haired boy and the white-haired girl. What? The two asked, confused by what Tanjiro said. They took Stan to send him to another dimension, world, universe or whatever they call it, said Tanjiro, alerted. But this has to be a joke, Issei said excitedly. It's not a joke, I'm serious, said Tanjiro, upset. Damn, Melina, put the commands now, Issei ordered seriously. I'm working on it, Melina said as she began entering commands into the computer. But at that moment you would hear how the door of the room, which was made of metal, began to open, which Alberto at 3 and making Melina begin to write the commands faster, and Tanjiro would take a weapon. I'll give them time, said Tanjiro, addressing the supernatural beings. Tanjiro, wait, Issei said, worried about his friend. Ready, Melina said, already finishing the commands, which made the armor mask cover Issei's face. I'm going for him, Melina reported, about to take another weapon. Dad heard the gunshots in the distance. Wait, it would be very dangerous for you to go, said Issei, and then he saw Melina start to think about it. You're right, apart from that someone has to take care of you and prevent you from dying, Melina said, taking the weapon and approaching Issei. Put a blanket on top of me and problem solved, said Issei before being covered by a cloth that covered the entire armor. Not bad, huh? Melina said mockingly. Even at this moment you continue to bother me? Issei asked with annoyance. What can I say, my cousin Justice always says that it is better to be calm in these types of situations than to be upset and scared, added to the fact that bothering you calms me down, said Melina, and then hid since a fallen angel with several bullet holes had entered the room. The fallen angel would begin to search for Issei and Melina without any success until he would concentrate on their auras, finding Melina, but at that moment he would be held by the neck. Hello, you son of a hitch, Issei said before pulling the fallen angel and throwing him against a wall, then going towards him and crushing his head, breaking it and thus killing him. Okay, that was a bit abrupt, Melina said, shocked. It's not that big of a deal, and if I'm honest, I'm 98.97% sure that this guy has killed several people, Issei began to say, and then went towards the door. Stay here, unfortunately this is the safest place for now, I'll come for you when the area is safe, Issei said with the armor before leaving the place, going directly towards a tunnel. I'm sorry, little prince, but I won't stay here waiting for you, Melina said, taking a weapon, then leaving the room and heading in Issei's direction. Time after. Melina could be seen entering a room that seemed to be the medical room, looking around, pointing her gun in the direction they were looking, but at any moment she would hear some grunts, so out of curiosity she would approach, seeing something that surprised her. Izuko, said Melina, surprised, looking at the black-haired girl who desperately and with her mouth covered in a muzzle, was trying to free herself from a stretcher. And without wasting time Melina would begin to untie her friend, who once freed would jump on Melina, who would put her weapon in the middle, thus preventing Nezuko from scratching her. Nezuko, what the hell is wrong with you? It's me, you bad girl, said the white-haired girl, forcing herself on Nezuko, who was also holding the gun. They stayed like that for a while, then Melina kneed her in the stomach and then used the black-haired girl's weight to push her aside so that Melina could then climb on top of her and hold her two arms. Nezuko, calm down, it's me, Melina, your stupid friend, Melina said, upset, struggling, but strangely Nezuko had more strength than the white-haired girl. They were struggling again, but when Melina repeated who she was, Nezuko seemed to have heard her now, so starting to calm down, she would stop struggling, which Melina did as well. Nezuko, is it you again? Melina asked, looking at her, to which the black-haired woman confirmed with a nod. Okay, I'm going to take off your bosal, so don't try anything, Melina informed, beginning to take off the bosal from the black-haired woman. Once that was done, the white-haired girl would see that Nezuko now had sharper teeth. Okay, this is new, Melina said, surprised. Then new, what do you mean, Melina-san? Nezuko asked, confused. I'll tell you later. She stands up and extends her hand to the black-haired girl. We have to go, your brother did something stupid and is in danger along with Mr. Stan and maybe Issei, said Melina seriously. What, we have to go help my brother and Issei-kun, said Nezuko desperately, jumping up and then running out of the room at high speed. Okay, looks at some syringes on a small table. I think they experimented on her, said Melina, and then left the infirmary area to follow Nezuko with difficulty. With Nezuko going almost at full speed, the black-haired woman would hit the supernatural beings that crossed her path. With punches and kicks she would knock out several of them. She would continue like this until she saw a metallic being in the distance, so increasing her speed she would go against it, then jump and kick it in the stomach, crashing it against a wall. Issei, Melina shouted, seeing what Nezuko had done. Issei, said Nezuko, surprised. Demons notices Nezuko. Hey, hello Nezuko-san, Issei greeted with his hand. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Nezuko apologized desperately. Yeah, I don't blame you since you didn't know who I was, Issei said, standing up. I'm really sorry, Nezuko said in a low voice, lowering her head. Hey, the black-haired girl nodded. It's not your fault, you didn't know who you were, Issei said kindly. Okay, if they've stopped flirting. Both blush, although it wasn't noticeable on Issei's part because of the armor. It would be better to continue and save your grandfather and your brother, Melina said as she started to walk. That's what I was doing, Issei said, following her. Likewise, said Nezuko, following them. I'm after. I think that's all, Issei said, looking around, but he would have to barely dodge a magic attack. You said Melina, aiming at the demon that had attacked them and then shooting, killing it. I think after this we'll have to go to a psychologist, Issei said simply. I'm sorry, Issei-kun, but this is no time for jokes, Nezuko said seriously. Ah, they stole my words, Melina said with a smile, but the three of them would be thrown in different directions by an explosion caused by several supernatural beings. But from one moment to the next, each one of them would begin to die from accurate shots to their heads that were instantly destroyed. I'm sorry for the delay, but all the pin facilities in the village were destroyed, said a robot that had Friday's voice. Obviously the AI was controlling it. And I'm also sorry for the delay, Mr. Stan had sent me on a mission, said Sakura covered in blood. Hello all, aren't you my grandfather's lawyer? Issei asked, looking at her. Yes and no, it's a bit difficult to explain, said Sakura simply, and then her right elbow transformed into a rifle, which was used to pierce the head of a yokai that came to attack them with a spear. Okay, I didn't see that coming, said Issei, and then raised his left arm and pulled a rope, from which a projectile came out that headed towards a dead woman, destroying her. And why is that? Melina asked. I looked for my grandfather everywhere, well, in most of the places I could access, and this is a place I haven't been to yet, Issei said before entering through the destroyed door, which led to a hallway. Why do I think something bad will happen in this place? Looks at the three teenagers who were calm, although they gave off an aura of seriousness. It would be better not to tell them about the deaths of all the citizens of the town. Sakura thought all that, following the three teenagers and being followed by Friday. I'm after. Friday, do a scan, Issei ordered the AI, which complied with his order. After that, the robot controlled by Friday would make some beeps so that it could speak later. Mr. Pines and young Tanjiro are in front of us about 18 meters behind a hidden door. They are currently surrounded by 9 supernatural beings, 2 demons, 3 yokai and 4 fallen angels, reported Friday. Okay, Entos, shoot now since your bullets will go through the wall, so that Issei can shoot a projectile afterwards. After that I'll finish them off, said Sakura, transforming her left arm into a rifle, from which a scope protruded. Okay, Issei said, raising his left arm, then holding another rope with his right hand. Ready? Sakura asked. Yes, Mrs. Sakura, Friday and Issei said at the same time. In 3 he began to count, preparing his rifle. 2 Friday positions himself and aims with his weapon. 1 Issei crouches and places himself in front of Friday. Now Sakura finished saying before Friday began to shoot. After Issei would shoot another projectile which crashed against the wall causing an explosion. After that Sakura would begin to shoot with such precision through the smoke that she hit several supernatural beings. After that the group would advance, entering the room and finding 6 of the 9 dead supernatural beings, only leaving 3 alive, although all 3 had several bullet damage to their bodies. Behind them was what Melina and Issei supposed, what Tanjiro had told them before he left to give them time, the dimensional gap. Damn, you, said one of the 4 fallen angels, this one being the only one alive of the 4. I'll kill them, said the only living yokai, taking a sword and then launching himself at the group, but Friday stepped forward and grabbed the badly wounded yokai by the head and then shot him, killing him. Damn, said the only demon still alive, seeing the intruding group. He knew very well that he would die, but he would not leave alone. He would look at Tanjiro, who was on the ground with a dent in his stomach, bleeding out. He had been like that for a while, most likely he only had a few moments to live. Then he would look at Stan, who had his back to the portal, added to the fact that he was with chains blocking his movement. So in a quick movement and with all the strength he had left, he would lift Stan and then direct him towards the portal, then release him, and so that they spy his head would be pierced by a pink and blue bullet. Grandfather, brother, Issei and Nezuko shouted at the same time, the black-haired girl running towards her brother and the brown-haired girl running towards his grandfather with difficulty because of the armor, but he wouldn't make it. Ah, it seems we won't see each other for a while, Issei. Stan began to say, being absorbed by the portal. Be strong, son, about to be completely absorbed by the portal. Elizabeth and Sakura, take care of Issei, and by the way, Melina, I'm giving you a 1-year vacation. He finished saying they are being absorbed by the portal, which seems to close instantly. Grandpa, Issei said in a low voice, being shocked. Tanjiro, please brother, don't leave me, Nezuko begged with tears overflowing from her beautiful pink eyes, while Melina stood on the other side of Tanjiro and began to treat his wounds as quickly as possible. I'm sorry, sister, but I won't be able to be by your side for long. I'm sorry, said Tanjiro with a smile. No, please don't die, Nezuko begged in anguish. Tanjiro Issei said quietly, then turned around and walked towards his friend, taking off his helmet in the process. How are you? Issei asked hurriedly. She lost a lot of blood, Melina said, and was then seen by the black-haired girl and the brown-haired boy with years of eyes, and they both knew what she was referring to. So with all the pain in the world in their hearts, they watched as their friend and brother began to give his last words in this life. Issei Senkomenzo at Desert Tanjiro. He approaches him. Issei, just Issei friend, said Issei with tears in his eyes. All this was seen by Sakura, who looked at them with sadness and pain, while Friday, although she was not programmed to feel sadness, inevitably went into her system to feel that human and animal emotion. You know I'm glad to be your friend, Issei, and I'm sorry this is sudden, but please promise me something, please, Tanjiro asked with a warm smile. Anything for you, Tanjiro, Issei said with sadness in his voice. Take care of Nezuko for me, please, you Nezuko. I know this will hurt you, but our family is mu, said Tanjiro, without being able to finish his sentence because of the formation of a lump in his throat. She's dead, right? Nezuko asked, although she already knew the answer. Yes, that's right, said Tanjiro before closing his eyes while still maintaining his smile. Tanjiro, she moves him but receives a response. Tanjiro, she moved him again but still did not receive any sign of life. Tanjiro, Nezuko screamed with pain in her voice, realizing that her older brother was dead. Time after. The group could be seen returning to the town in which it was destroyed, or rather, several parts of it had been eradicated, and they were watching subtitles through other buildings. Apparently the supernatural beings had begun to build the buildings of their new territory. Issei carried a sleeping Nezuko on his back. After she cried for an hour in front of Tanjiro's body being comforted by Issei and Melina, she would end up falling asleep due to the physical and mental exhaustion that had happened in those 6 months. They're late, said Sakura, watching in the distance as some toasted vehicles approached them. And they are? Issei asked neutrally. The stupid people who should have been here 24 hours ago, Sakura said angrily. Chapter 6. Storyteller. It had been more than 5 months since the events of the kidnapping of the supernatural beings, where they were imprisoned for about 6 months. Several things had happened after the death of Tanjiro and the death of Stan, or well, that was what had been told to the public in order to hide the truth. Since if it was known what happened in that town and in its mines, which were the base of the group sent by the Chaos Brigade, which was exploited a few months later, it was evident that a riot was going to break out between the human world and the supernatural world. Even according to Sakura, there was a great probability that a war would start. Although it was evident that not all supernatural factions would participate, but leaving that aside. Nezuko had stayed with Issei in a large summer house mansion owned by the brown-haired grandfather. It was located on the edge of a ravine that led directly to a large lake, which faced the sea. Issei had made Nezuko go to a psychologist because of the trauma of having lost her family, added to the fact that she had been used for experimentation. And it was very opportune that Sakura was also a psychologist, which raised suspicions in Issei, so he secretly watched her without her realizing it. While Melina had moved to the city of Kuo, where her boyfriend lives, and where she began to attend the Kuo Academy, an all-girls school which has several educational divisions, such as the primary division, the secondary division and the university division, with Melina's division being the secondary division. Although there was something to mention, and that was the discomfort she had when using the academy outfit, which she did not like, partly because of the colors, and the other was that she did not like to wear only a skirt and show her legs. Unfortunately for her, she could not wear any pants. Although she could wear long stockings that did not take away the looks of boys and men who see her leaving the academy or when they are passing by the front of the academy and can see her from afar, apart from the fact that she could not wear her favorite boots either. She really wanted to continue having virtual classes, but her mother ended up sending her to the Kuo Academy, and she also wanted to have her job, although she still kept her job as a secretary. Stan had given her vacations which were registered in her digital worker file, and although she asked Issei to allow her to finish those vacations, the brown-haired boy as a joke and above all to annoy her. The flattery and words of enthusiasm said that she deserved them for her great work, and Melina knew very well that he did it to annoy, although Issei did it more so that she would rest, and instead of working, she would go to the psychologist whom he trusted to find out if Melina had had any trauma and that she could help her. While the brown-haired boy had not fallen into alcohol, that was something. Talking to his mind, Issei had been in a dark gray point, having lost one of his friends, and the man he considered a father was a very low blow for the brown-haired boy, added to the fact that he is constantly harassed by the press to know what it felt like to be in that situation, what exactly happened, that among other things, but one question stood out among them that only made him angry. Weren't you the one who killed him? Thank God there was Nezuko and Sakura to stop him, thus avoiding him from throwing himself at the person who asked that question. Talking to his mind, he felt outraged at that question. How could they ask him that? How the hell could he do that to the man who came to consider not only as a grandfather but as his father figure, if not much more? Issei had come to consider Stan as his own father, regardless of whether he was his grandfather. He even came to remember how at 6 years old, he had called him dad. That made Issei smile and laugh for the memory of a 100-year-old self with a big smile seeing his grandfather, but at the same time sending him into great sadness, remembering that he was no longer with him. At the same time, he had gained a trauma from the kidnapping of the supernatural beings, or rather a paranoia due to the fact that what happened to him could happen again, which caused him to increase security in his new home and to begin several projects, although one stood out. Good morning, Issei, greeting Friday to an Issei who was waking up. Good morning, Elizabeth, said Issei, getting up from his bed. I see that you now call me by my original name, answered Friday, now known as Elizabeth. And I see that you stopped calling me young Issei, and that now you only say my name, Issei said with a small smile, while changing his clothes. Well, after the improvements you gave me, it was obvious that I was going to stop calling you that way. After all, my personality, way of speaking and acting, are becoming more like that of a human, Elizabeth said with emotion. If I see that, wake up Nezuko, I have to take her to the Kuo Academy since today is her first day, said Issei, already changed, leaving his room. Right away, said Elizabeth, then activated a speaker in the black-haired girl's room. Nezuko, it's time to wake up, remember that today is your first day at the Kuo Academy. Elizabeth began to wake up the black-haired girl in a subtle way, which worked. She lets out a yawn. Good morning, Friday, Nezuko greets alone, snuggling further into her bed. I remind you that my original name is Elizabeth and that today begins your first day at Kuo Academy, said Elizabeth with amusement, watching through a camera on a laptop as Nezuko jumped up from her bed. I'm awake now, Nezuko said hurriedly. With Issei. Hello, Issei, said Sakura, taking a cup of coffee. In her left hand she held some documents. Good morning, Sakura, and those documents? Issei greeted and asked, starting to make his and Nezuko's breakfast. These are some things your grandfather left you, among them is his will and some analysis I did on Nezuko, Sakura answered, while passing him the documents and papers, which were taken by the brown-haired man. Do you know what happened to him? Issei asked, starting to look at the documents. Yes, takes a sip of coffee. What they injected her with was several things, meaning several different injections, along with a treatment where they put the altered blood of a demon in her, along with the transfer of demonic energy into her, that caused that, Sakura said, but Issei would be encouraged. Let him become a demon, said Issei, seeing Nezuko's results. Is there a problem with that? Sakura asked. The truth is no, I don't have any problem, or rather yes, since I have to find a way to tell him, Issei said thoughtfully, when at that moment Nezuko would arrive at the dining room. Good morning, both of you, Nezuko said with a smile. He turns around. Good morning, Nezuko. Issei didn't finish looking at the school uniform that Nezuko was wearing. Something's wrong, Issei-kun, why are you looking at me like that? Nezuko asked, looking at him. Hey, no, nothing's wrong with me, sit down, I'll serve you breakfast, said Issei, going to the kitchen. Damn, I'm not surprised why the girls from Kuo Academy are harassed by perverts, thought Issei, while putting his and Nezuko's breakfast on some plates, so that later, he would take them to the dining room, putting them on the table. Do you already have breakfast, Sakura? Asked Issei, receiving a thank you from Nezuko. If I already had breakfast. She looks at her wristwatch. Since I remembered I have to leave, see you later, said Sakura before leaving the comedy being seen off by the two teenagers. Time after. Do you know how to drive? True. Nezuko asked, getting into a sports vehicle, which belonged to Issei. That's right, I know how to drive, and I have my license, said Issei, in the constant seat, the one on the left. Okay, let's go, said Nezuko with a smile. Sure, Issei said, starting the car. Chapter 7 Testament. It was already 5:15 and Melina was arriving late to the academy. Hiba was running, but had difficulty because of the fact that she was wearing the stupid clothes that she had to wear to be at the Kuo Academy. While she was running, a red car would park a few meters in front of her, which put her on alert and putting her hand to a large bag where she carried all her study materials. She would take a stun gun that she had asked Issei for, but suddenly when she was passing in front of the car, she would hear the brown-haired man's voice. You're late, right? Issei asked, looking at her mockingly. Issei, he replied, looking at him coldly. Melina, you're still upset about the vacation, right? Issei asked with some nervousness as he began to raise the car window. She lets out a sigh. Whatever, she turns her head away with a small pink tint on her cheeks. Could you take me please? Melina asked, somewhat embarrassed. Sure, but one of you will have to sit on the other's lap, Issei said, lowering the window, showing a chibi Nezuko sitting on the passenger side. Hey. Hi, Nezuko, Melina greeted, starting to walk around the car. "Hello Melina-san," Izuku greeted, opening the door and being picked up by the white-haired girl, who put her in her gift. "Ready, let's go," said Melina, closing the vehicle door. Sure, Issei nodded, starting the car. "I'm after." "Well, do you want me to pick you two up later?" Issei asked, watching the two girls get out of their car. "Yes please, I would like to get home early today," Melina said. "I'd also like to get home quickly," added Nezuko. "Okay, I'll be here when it's time for you to retire, see you," Issei said with a smile, starting the vehicle. "See you later Issei, see you later Issei-kun." The two girls said goodbye before starting to enter the academy, under the attentive gaze of the girls who saw the interaction of the white-haired and black-haired girl with the brown-haired boy. With Issei. "Elizabeth, could you read me my grandfather's will please?" Issei asked the improved AI. "Issei, right away," Elizabeth said from the vehicle's radio. Testamento. "Hello Issei, I hope you are well, that you are taking care of yourself and eating well. If you are reading this, it means that I am dead and that you have already discovered the supernatural world. I know that you will have many questions which unfortunately many of them cannot be answered. Apart from that, here I will tell you about several things that you did not know, such as the identity of your real mother." At that, Issei would stop suddenly because of what he heard, which surprised and upset him a little. Right now all the questions he already had were multiplying by an increasing number. True mother. Does that mean that I am adopted? Does that mean that my grandfather and I are not related? Those and other questions were the ones that came to his head. Testamento. "I know you're asking yourself several questions, but first I'm going to answer the one about whether you are adopted or not, and the answer is yes, at least from your parents, but from me, I am your grandfather by blood." That confused Issei. "You see, your mother, whom you've had since the day you were born and who never treated you like a mother does with her child, is adoptive. I had adopted her one day when I found her in an alley. I decided to take care of her and raise you. I never imagined that she would treat you like that. Your real mother is the biological daughter of Stan Pineser and Morgan Stark. I can't tell you your mother's name now, since I know that you will look for her, something that won't work since she had died on the day of delivery. And I prefer that you know her name when you are older." "Issei, are you okay?" Elizabeth asked, seeing a static Issei in the car seat, ignoring the horns of the other cars, to which the AI would take control of the car and start driving. In the face of the movement of the auto, Issei reactionary. "Why yeah, sorry, it's not every day you find out you're adopted and that your grandmother is one of the smartest people and the most important person on the other side of the world, and when you find out your real family is dead," Issei said, surprised and sarcastically at the end. After all, his biological mother was dead along with his grandmother Morgan Stark, who had died for an eternity. Or well, that's what the media said. "Should I continue reading?" Elizabeth asked with concern. "See, por favor pidió Issei." "Okay," said Elizabeth. Testament. "But leaving that aside, I want you to go to the town, to the Pine Industries, or as they are secretly called, Star Industries." "Shall we go there?" Elizabeth asked. "It refers to the town where we were living and that the Chaos Brigade attacked. We will go, but we will bring equipment," said Issei, taking the wheel of the car and starting to return to his new home. "In the mansion there is a hidden room where you will find equipment. There is also something that can help you in hand-to-hand and distance combat, added to the fact that in the town there are hidden places where there are defense drones and that the Chaos Brigade is not raided," Elizabeth reported calmly. "Okay, well, I go back home, you activate the drones in the village and make sure there are no enemy supernatural beings," Issei ordered calmly. "Right away," said Elizabeth. "I'm after." "Who would have thought that my grandfather had this," said Issei with the suit armor at the entrance of the town where the Chaos Brigade had attacked and where several, not to say almost all of its inhabitants died. When Mr. Stan entered the supernatural world, he developed a paranoia where he created several weapons and equipment to fight against supernatural beings without the use of magic, Elizabeth said from the suit's helmet. "Yes, I see that. It seems that having paranoia towards the supernatural world is familiar," Issei said before starting to walk towards the interior of the destroyed village. While Issei Hiba from Kuo Academy, then to his home and then to the destroyed town, Elizabeth continued reading her grandfather's will, where Stan would write to Issei more about his family, including his distant cousins Dipper Pines and Mabel Pines, his other grandchildren being his great-uncle Stanley, his father's father. Both Pines are his distant cousins and are currently living in Gravity Falls, Oregon, where Stan had planned to take Issei to meet them. A pity that he can't do it. Elizabeth also read him how her grandfather had entered the supernatural world, where he only investigated small anomalies of the world, galaxy and universe, discovering beings that everyone thought were just a myth. He even discovered supernatural beings that not even the other supernatural beings knew about. His investigation had taken him to Gravity Falls, Oregon, where he would carry out his investigation and where he would live for a long time. where many things would happen and he would live some or rather many adventures with his brother and grandchildren after having reconsolidated with his brother Stanley. After that, Stan would go on a trip around the world where he would continue discovering more anomalies, ending in Japan where he settled and managed to form a family, Issei being part of that family. Testamento. Once in the Pines facility, you will have to go to the basement. While Elizabeth continued reading the will, Issei was entering the Pines facility with several attack drones following him. Once there, just say the words that I told you when you were 8 years old. There you will find what I left you as my legacy. There you will find an absolute copy of all my research, and apart from that there you will find my most recent experiments. Apart from that you will find more information about our family, only you will not open the box where your mother's information is. Just wait a while, yes. I love you, Issei, take care, I will be watching you from heaven if possible, my son. Chapter 8. For God's sake, Grandpa, if only you had revealed all this, you would be the best researcher of all time, said Issei before a large sarin measuring 80 meters on all sides and 130 meters from the beginning to the bottom, and even in the distance you could see more doors which most likely opened to other rooms equal to or larger than this one. Throughout the room you could see several large shelves with large books, computers connected to a single computer which was 6x7 meters. You could also see more than one sculpture, a bone display of different creatures that Issei did not know, although there were others that dealt with dinosaurs. Although most of them Issei did not know, but if he looked up he would see the skeleton of a pterosaur, but the brown-haired man would notice something. Hey Elizabeth, isn't that pterosaur skeleton billions of years old? Issei asked as he began to enter the room. I've already scanned it, the skeleton is more than 150 years old, Elizabeth reported through the brown-haired man's helmet. That means that Issei would begin to say, but Elizabeth stepped forward. That dinosaurs did not become extinct 64 million years ago, but that they were still alive, and that there are probably still living dinosaurs in this era, Elizabeth explained, surprised. I see, Issei said in surprise. After that, Issei would begin to see the place a little. After that he would go to another room, which had several types of plants of different types. There were also books which told Issei that in those books was the information of the plants. Then he would go to another room, where he would find devices of different types, which caught his attention. Then he would return to the beginning. Elizabeth, do you know how many rooms there are here? Issei asked the AI. There are about 10 more rooms, making a total of 13 rooms, plus one where there is a form of transportation, Elizabeth responded. Then let's go there, Issei said, starting to walk following Elizabeth's instructions. Time after. Come on up, Issei said, opening the door for his friends. Thank you, Issei. Kun, the white-haired and black-haired girls thanked at the same time. You're welcome, Issei said, starting the car. Time after. Hey, where are you two living? Melina asked. In my grandfather's summer mansion, Nezuko lives with me, Issei replied. Both of you together? Melina asked, narrowing her eyes. Yes, he stops at the red light, after that he turns to look at Melina jealous. Issei asked in a mocking tone, but he would receive a blow to his shoulder. Of course not, and I have a boyfriend and I have no idea about being unfaithful, said Melina, annoyed. Do you have a boyfriend? Nezuko asked. If that's right, his name is Richard Salazar, Melina responded. Do you think we could meet him someday? Issei said with a smile and accelerating the car at the green light. I prefer that you don't, since I know you very well, Issei. I do, and I know that you will do something really stupid to him, Melina said accusingly. What a wicked liar you are, Lucifer. Hey, since I noticed, your last name is the name of a demon, Issei said, somewhat thoughtful. And? It's not that big a deal, just the consistency of life, Melina responded. Sure, you're not a demon without knowing it, Issei said. Ah, that's ridiculous, and if it were, how would I know? Melina said wittily. Putting on what would harm every demon, a biblical cross, holy water and prayers in the name of the Lord, Nezuko answered for Issei. She's right, Issei said, caressing the black-haired girl's head, who smiled. Whatever, Melina said grumpily, removing Issei's hand from Nezuko's head. Issei remembers that today you have to be with the Haidu family before Sakura to listen to your grandfather Stan's will. Elizabeth suddenly spoke, scaring the women, but it wouldn't scare Issei, because he already saw it coming. What the hell, Elizabeth, what's wrong with you? Melina said angrily. For God's sake, Elizabeth, please don't do that again, said Nezuko, somewhat upset. He brings his hand to his mouth to keep from laughing as he's driving. Holy crap, that was good, Issei said amused. Issei, did you hear me? Elizabeth asked, seeing that the brown-haired man did not respond to what she said. Yes, sorry Elizabeth, I heard you. He lets out a sigh. I wish I didn't go, Issei said frustrated. Do you want me to go with you? Nezuko asked, looking at him. No thanks, I prefer that you prepare the first aid kit at home for when I get back from fighting Isaac or Canny, said Issei, parking in front of Melina's house. Well, here we are, Melina, do you want me to pick you up tomorrow? Asked Issei, looking at her. Wait a moment, I'll be right back, said Melina, getting out of the car and going to her house, trained in it, then coming out after a while with her typical secretary clothes before the attentive eyes of Issei and Nezuko, who were confused. And that's it, Issei said, looking at her. I'm going with you so someone can treat your wounds, Melina said as she got into the car. Okay, Issei said somewhat doubtfully. After that, Issei would arrive at his home where he would leave Nezuko and Melina. After that he would prepare and go to the place where the will of his late grandfather would be read. Once he arrived at the place, he would get out of his car after parking it, putting a communicator on his left ear where he could communicate with Elizabeth. After that he would enter the building, walk down some hallways, and then stop in front of a door. Sure of this, Issei, you still have the chance to break a bone and thus have an excuse to miss it, Elizabeth asked and informed, worried about her master best friend. Yes, I am Elizabeth, Issei said in a low voice, entering the room, meeting the Haidu family. You're late, said Sakura, sitting in a chaise longue a little far from the Haidu. First hello, second I know I'm adopted, and third I can go now, Issei said disinterestedly. Time after. At least I broke that bastard's face, and I left him much worse than I am, said Issei, getting out of his car and parking it in the 5-story garage, then starting to climb some stairs. When he arrived at the main floor of his home, Melina and Nezuko, who were watching a movie on a big screen, would see him with several bruises and blood on some parts of his clothes, face and hands. Although the one with the hands was older, he had a purple right eye. Oh my goodness, her head hurts, but she ignores it. What happened to you? Melina asked, worried about her boss friend going to him with a first aid kit. For God's sake, Issei-kun, what happened to you? Nezuko asked, going to help her friend. Not much, I broke my bastard brother's face with a fire extinguisher. After that I would hit my father several times and leave him sterile, and then I would defend myself from my sister and mother, since Sakura stopped them, Issei answered as if nothing happened. Come sit down, said Melina, taking him to an armchair. In two she began to cure the brown-haired man's debts. Thank you, Issei said. You're welcome, said Melina, healing the chestnut's wounds. You're welcome, Issei-kun, whenever you need us we'll be there, Nezuko said with a big smile. Thank you. Issei thanked again, now with a smile. Extra. Quick, Stan, faster, said Stan, running from creatures made of fire. After that he would take out a kind of gun from his trench coat and then shoot in front of him, thus opening a portal. After crossing the gate and it closed, Stan fell in the middle of a medieval town. Looking around he would realize that several ponies, unicorns and pegasi, were looking at him with surprise, until one would shout monster, causing everyone to run like crazy. He gets up from the ground. Great, now I'm on my little pony. He looks at his dimensional gun, which was broken, and the gun I stole from that Rick Sanchez guy is broken. Maybe my luck can get worse, complained Stan, frustrated. Hey, jerk, you better stop causing chaos right now, shouted a light blue Pegasus with hair and a tail in rainbow colors. He lets out a sigh. Why should I open it? Stan complained, pulling a stun gun out of his trench coat. Chapter 9. And what do you plan to do now? Elizabeth asked a 16-year-old Issei in her personal workshop. I have read my grandfather's books, I have even seen his projects. I think I can do something great with them, but that is for the future. For now I will take care of this, said Issei, and then made a movement with his right hand, which caused a hologram of the armor he used to escape from the Chaos Brigade. Of the armor you used to escape from that place? Elizabeth asked, looking at him. More or less. He begins to modify the hologram, undoing some parts. It is something that will help me in the moments that I need it most, you, said Issei with a smile. If what you're thinking of making is better armor, I do and apostrophe T think it's very functional, since you won't be able to carry it everywhere, Elizabeth said doubtfully. My dear Elizabeth, this would only be like the Mark II. In the near future I will make another armor, another more specific and 100 times better than this one, although that does not mean that I will continue creating others, for example the Mark III, the 4, 5 and so on. Do you understand? Issei explained and asked with a smile. If I understand, what will the other armor be? Elizabeth asked. I will tell you that in due time. For now I have to start building this one, said Issei, getting up from a chair, then taking a toolbox and heading to a table where the materials he needed were. Do you want me to save the plans in the pin industry files? Elizabeth asked. No, I prefer this to be a secret, so keep it on my personal servers, Issei said, arriving at the table and placing the toolbox on top of it, then starting to work. Time after. Issei could be seen with his left arm surrounded by a metallic exoskeleton, with cables protruding from it. He was screwing some parts of it together. The exoskeleton was connected to the arc reactor on his chest through some cables. Ready, Issei said, and then raised his left arm and pointed at the wall. Are you sure? Elizabeth asked. Yes, I am, so fire in 3, 2, 1 go, Issei said before a repulsor was activated in the palm of his hand, and he was thrown backwards, crashing into a wall when the repulsor fired. On a scale of 1 to 10, Elizabeth began to say, but would be interrupted by Issei. Keep saying that and I swear I'll deactivate you, Issei threatened. Haha, sorry, I couldn't resist, Elizabeth apologized. Oh ha, Issei complained. Time after. Ready? Elizabeth asked, seeing an Issei with two exoskeletons, one on each leg. If I am, activate them but before Issei could finish his sentence, the propellers in the exoskeletons of his feet would activate, sending him crashing into a support wall and then falling to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Time after. Okay, careful, keep that level of presentation, said Issei while flying above the ground using the thrusters of the boots exoskeleton of his feet with those of his arms. You're doing well, Elizabeth congratulated. Thanks, he begins to lose control. Damn, I still need money, said Issei with frustration before crashing into a wall. Time after. Okay, I got it, I was flying over the ground again with the thrusters of the notes and gloves. It would start and go backwards but would move to the right, then move the skin in such a way that it would go forward, but moving the arms forward would stabilize it and then put it in a straight posture. I did it, sir, Elizabeth said in surprise. I did it, Issei asked surprised. I did it, Elizabeth replied. Time after. Issei would walk until he stood up, after that several mechanical claws would begin to place pieces of silver armor on him, adjusting and arranging parts of the armor, with the exception of the beaver's face which was on a table, to which he would take it and put it on his face. Elizabeth starts the visual interface and transports preference to the main interface, Issei ordered. On command, said Elizabeth before in front of Issei, the visual interface of the suit will begin to activate. And how about it? Issei asked, looking at the features that the interface showed him. Our download is now complete, we are online and ready, Issei, Elizabeth reported. Shall we start the virtual test? Issei asked. I've already started it, Elizabeth reported. Okay, adjust the control surfaces, Issei ordered. Right away, said Elizabeth before several plates which formed the armor began to rise, lower and adjust, leaving them in a better position. Okay, I recommend you deactivate the armor and we do more tests, Elizabeth suggested. Yes, but first check the air traffic, along with the weather and check ground control, said Issei with an idea in his head. Issei still needs several tests so that the flight system can be used safely, Elizabeth said, not very sure. Elizabeth, my grandfather once told me that you have to run before you can walk, said Issei, while Elizabeth resignedly activated the suit's thrusters. Thank you, Issei thanked before leaning forward, thus beginning to advance. Wait a second, your grandfather never told you that, Elizabeth replied. That's right, the one who said it. He walks through the tunnel that leads to his garage was his father, Issei said with a smile as he came out of the tunnel and began to go up to the open ground. Oh God, Elizabeth exclaimed. Don't complain, you know that's how I am, Issei said as he flew through the sky, spinning several times scaring him until he managed to control the armor. Ahaha, your face, Elizabeth laughed. Shut up, Issei said annoyed. In the distance, Issei would see an amusement park, so redirecting the armor, he would begin to pass over it, watching with increasing interest, Melina with a blonde-haired boy. Who would have thought, if she has a boyfriend, Issei said surprised, turning his gaze and seeing two children looking at him in shock while their ice creams fell, making the brown-haired boy laugh. Then he would be flying over the city of Kuo and then suddenly start flying up. Hey Elizabeth, what is the height that an SR-71 Blackbird managed to get? Issei asked excitedly. The altitude is about 26,000 meters, why? Elizabeth informed and asked. That's a record and records were meant to be broken, Issei said before increasing the flight speed of the armor, thus rising higher. A dangerous layer of ice is forming around Issei's suit, Elizabeth reported worriedly. Continue, higher, Issei said excitedly, going even higher. This Elizabeth would speak, but the communication would be interrupted by the ice around the suit. Oh no, Issei began to say before being attracted by the Earth's gravity. Elizabeth deploys the spoilers. He doesn't receive any response. Elizabeth. Damn, I lost communication. I have to break the ice, Issei said, trying to break the ice with the movements of his body, but it was not very effective until he would direct his right hand to a cylinder on his right thigh, which was pulled by Issei, thus deploying the spoilers, freeing himself from the ice and turning on the armor's thrusters again. But God, why does he have to be so stupid? Now how do I help him? Elizabeth said worriedly until she realized that communication with the armor returned. Hey, look on the bright side, I saved myself, Issei said as he passed through the streets of the city and then began to rise, passing by a surprised Haidu family. Holy God, you are a madman, said Elizabeth angrily. Yes, I know, said Issei starting to head to his mansion. Time after. Okay, deactivate the armor, Issei said from above the roof of his house. Right away, said Elizabeth, deactivating the armor's thrusters. By doing so the armor would fall on the roof of his home, passing through it, going to the floor below, passing through it as well, and then falling to the other floor below. Why did I just notice this piano? said Nezuko, approaching a beautiful black piano, but at that moment a wild Issei would fall, breaking the piano and going through the floor, arriving directly at her garage, falling on top of her car. At that moment a robot would approach Issei with a fire extinguisher, throwing foam on top of Issei. "Are you okay?" Elizabeth asked, looking at him. "Yes," Issei answered simply. Chapter 10, Help from an AI. "How did you get hurt like that, Issei-kun?" Nezuko asked while sitting on the couch tending to the wounds of an Issei who had his left arm in a cast. "I played a lot of Free Fire," Issei replied, taking the remote control and starting to change the television channel. "Issei-kun, what are you hiding from me?" Nezuko asked, narrowing her eyes. "I hide from you that I find you pretty and attractive every time I see you in the cool uniform," Issei said in a mocking tone, but he would receive a blow from Nezuko on his head. "Don't say that, Issei-kun," said Nezuko with annoyance and a slight blush on her cheeks. "Haha, sorry, I couldn't help it," said Issei, falling back on the couch. "I'm after." "Okay, here I am," Elizabeth said, Issei entering his personal workshop while a light blue hologram with characteristics that resemble neurons appeared before him. "Should N''to you be resting? Since your arm is broken," said Elizabeth, angrily watching her creator's grandson approaching her holographic form. He stops in front of the hologram. "Calm down, Elizabeth, I'm fine, besides I still have the other arm, besides I don't plan on getting into the armor for a while, but that doesn't mean I won't continue with more projects," said Issei, addressing a blue holographic folder. "And those would be?" Elizabeth asked, a little annoyed but mostly curious. "One of those projects would be a better armor with more technology, and one that inspired me from a creature I saw in my grandfather's books," Issei said with a smile, touching the holographic file, thus releasing several holographic images and annotations. "And what exactly inspires you?" Elizabeth asked curiously. "I was inspired by a creature that my grandfather called a symbiote, as I understand it is of extraterrestrial origin, but leaving that aside, what a symbiote does is join a host which is necessary for the species in order to live. In doing so they not only benefit, but they also benefit their own hosts, granting them unique abilities," Issei explained while searching through the images in the file. "And what exactly do you plan to do?" Elizabeth asked, confused. "As I already told you, I plan to make an armor consisting of a modified and improved metal. The armor will be endosymbiotic, a metal that will have the same function as a symbiote. For now it will be called upper armor," said Issei, placing the image of the armor with a smile. "Do you have the necessary resources and technology?" Elizabeth asked. "Of course I have them, it will just take me a long time to do it," Issei replied. "And how long would it take you to do it?" Elizabeth asked again. "In a while it would be finished. I think about including several things. I had already been preparing it and getting what was necessary. Apart from that I plan to continue with Mark's projects, so I calculate that when I am 17 it would be ready," Issei responded calmly, seeing some holographic data. "I see," said Elizabeth. "Somewhere else." Wait, how did that idiot Issei break his left arm? And something more important, because now he found out, said Melina next to Nezuko. Both were in the Kuo Academy, precisely in the building furthest from it. "I don't know either, I just remember that after seeing a robot go through the roof, breaking a beautiful piano from which ghosts came out to break, about 3 hours would pass, and I received a message from Issei telling me that he was in the hospital, and that without seeing the rest because it's already obvious," said Nezuko calmly. At that Melina would let out a sigh. "Well, I'll go visit him later, but leaving that aside, did you hear what they're doing next year?" Melina asked. "Yes, that the academy was going to be mixed. I'll tell you the truth, that seems kind of silly to me," Nezuko replied. "And you're right, only perverts will come here with the exception of a few people," Melina said, looking at her phone. "Is your boyfriend coming to the academy?" Nezuko asked curiously. "Yes, he will come, and by the way, will Issei come to the academy?" Melina asked curiously. "I don't know, honestly, I haven't told him anything about it, apart from that I think it wouldn't be of any use to him, since if he came here, he would probably only see things that he already knows," Nezuko responded in a thoughtful tone. "You should, if he was here it would be more fun," Melina said with a small smile. "Melina-san, don't cheat on your boyfriend," said Nezuko with a small smile and a somewhat joking tone, receiving a cold look from Melina, which caused the black-haired girl to get nervous. "But Issei. Issei, you have a flame of James Rhodes," Elizabeth said, putting a hologram in front of Issei, stopping from building what she was doing. "Put it on hold," Issei replied, moving the hologram and continuing with what he was doing. Issei called Elizabeth in a cold and serious way. Okay, Issei began to say before answering the call. "Hello James, how have you been?" Issei greeted calmly as he continued working on his job. "Hello Issei, I've been doing well here on the other side of the world," James greeted enthusiastically. "And tell me, when will you, Miles and Peter return to Kuo?" Issei asked with a smile, while taking some components and adding them to the project he was working on. "How did you know I called you for that?" James resigned. I am a genius, millionaire, philanthropist, teenager, inventor and builder with a slight touch of scientist. What did you expect, that I wouldn't notice? Issei said with grace in his voice, continuing to work on his project. Okay, good point, and by the way, what project are you working on now? James asked curiously. It's not a big deal, I'm just doing something that will keep me alive longer, Issei said as he raised his left hand, showing a new version of the arc reactor, almost identical to the previous one, but with improvements in several parts, and built with better materials. How long do I live? Issei, what do you mean? James asked seriously and with concern. How long do I live? James, I think you heard me wrong, I said to improve the quality of life, although it probably won't go on the market, said Issei, playing dumb, as he got carried away and said something he didn't want anyone else to know. Issei, I'm not a fool, James said with some annoyance. At that Issei let out a sigh. I know, but whatever, I'll be fine, James, it's just stupid. By the way, when will you come back, future military man? Issei asked, changing the subject. That caused James to let out a sigh. We'll be back next year. Miles wants to get to know that girl Gwen or the other Gwendoline Poole better. Peter wants to see Mary Jane again, and by the way, how's it going with Sarah? James informed and asked with curiosity and a smile on the other end of the line. Well, we've been doing very well, Issei lied, looking away. Okay, I'm happy for you, buddy, see you later, James said excitedly. Yeah, see you later, Issei said goodbye before hanging up the call. Issei, are you okay? Elizabeth asked worriedly. Yeah, I'm fine, I better finish for today, Issei began to say as he got up from his chair and headed to the exit of his workshop. See you later, I'll be getting some sleep, Issei said before leaving the place. When Issei left his workshop, all the lights went out, but certain technological components activated and a light illuminated the new version of the arc reactor that was not yet finished. Issei looks at the brown-haired man through a camera in the mansion. It's about time someone helped you, said Elizabeth with determination, while giving the order to some robotic arms that began to continue with the creation of the new arc reactor. Chapter 11. I am. Hello everyone, before starting today's chapter, I want to report certain things and correct some things. In previous chapters to Sarah, Issei's ex, and Richard, Melina's boyfriend, I gave them the same last name, which is Salazar. This was a mistake that I already corrected by changing Sarah's last name. Now her name is Sarah Afton. Another thing I want to inform you about Issei's dialogue when he has armor. Oh, come on, it will be when Issei has the armor and it is activated. Oh, come on, it will be when he talks to himself or to Elizabeth or while he is answering a call from someone inside the armor. What I am referring to are those scenes where Tony's face is directly shown in the movies. Oh, come on, it will be when he has armor but it is deactivated or without energy. But that said, let the chapter begin. Storyteller. Issei could be seen in his personal workshop. He was leaning on a hospital stretcher. Where did he get it from? Nobody knew, not even Elizabeth, who was with Issei 24/7. Right now Issei was connected to several machines. Next to him was a pink-toned robot, some parts yellow, with certain parts that had plates including the torso and head, which had flower patterns. The robot was being piloted by Elizabeth, who gave the order to the robot to hold the new model of the arc reactor. Approaching Issei, she would take his walk and raise it up, revealing her abdomen, which although it was not excessively muscular, was trained and defined. Do you exercise? Elizabeth asked, staring at Issei's abdomen while secretly recording him. Yes, I do it before going to sleep, it helps me sleep, Issei said, breathing deeply to calm down again. Thank you for completing the arc reactor, Issei thanked, giving a small smile to the AI. You're welcome, Issei, whenever you need help, I'll be there, through thick and thin, Elizabeth said enthusiastically. At that Issei smiled more. Thank you, the brown-haired boy thanked again. You're welcome, said Elizabeth calmly and happily at the same time, but that would be changed by doubt, Issei. Are you sure about this? Asked the AI, not very confident. No, and I'm telling you the truth, but there's no other way, Issei said with a sad smile before looking down and looking at his abdomen, exactly the part where the arc reactor was. That will kill you if you don't manage to exchange the palladium for another source of power, Elizabeth said worriedly. I know. How much life do I have left? Issei asked, still maintaining his sad and slightly defeated smile. How much do you think? Elizabeth asked in response, removing the arc reactor from Issei, causing him to begin to have a cardiac arrest. But Elizabeth quickly began to take out some things that were in the tube where the reactor is housed. Is this a dumpling? Elizabeth wondered, seeing said food in her hand, but she would receive some blows from a dying Issei. Sorry, I'll continue, Elizabeth said, and then put her hand into the tube and took out some cables, then connected the cables of the new arc reactor to the magnet on Issei's chest. After that she would place the arc reactor on the chestnut's chest. And then give the reactor a light blow, thus activating it. Breathing heavily, Issei would look at the robot beside him angrily. Don't do that again, Issei ordered angrily, while he continued breathing heavily. Sorry, I didn't realize, Elizabeth apologized embarrassedly. At that, Issei would let out a sigh. Okay, I forgive you, it's over now anyway, said Issei, looking away tiredly and then closing his eyes. Time skip 1 week later. Issei could be seen sitting in an armchair in a room away from his personal workshop, a kind of restroom. In front of him a flat screen placed on the wall was turned on, the news was playing on it. Sitting on the armchair, Issei was fixing a gauntlet of his new armor, the Mark 43. What? They thought he was going to put the Mark III. Well, it's not like that, so let's continue. Watching the television carefully, he would see that they were talking about a terrorist attack that was taking place. The television would show the scenes of the events that were taking place. But Issei would come to notice something, and that was that in the background of a few editions of the small town that was being attacked, a person could barely be seen. Quietly the person came out somewhat blurry, but Issei would manage to notice something. A fallen angel wing. At that, Issei would begin to think, then he would look at his right hand that was protected by the armor gauntlet. Having a thought in his head, he would look at the television again, seeing what had made him make a decision that would create one of the most powerful heroes in the world. From Elizabeth's point of view, the AI would see how Issei closed his right hand in anger, while he and she saw how a small family, a father and mother with their daughter 3 years old, were being forcibly separated, putting the 3 of them in different groups of people as safe as possible to enslave them. After that, Elizabeth would see how Issei got up from the chair, then raised his right arm and opened his hand with which he would charge the repulsor, which would release a blast of energy that broke the door of the room, which was thrown back while raising a large amount of smoke. Issei, what? Elizabeth began to say, but he would see how pieces of armor flew through the smoke, then adhered to Issei's body and began to build the Mark 43 armor. When he finished, he showed the last project built by the brown-haired boy. Enough of testing in the laboratory, it's time for field testing, Issei said seriously, leaving the room, entering directly into his personal workshop, but leaving that aside, he would propel himself with his thrusters flying over and landing on the other side of the workshop, then go through another door, thus reaching his garage. Seeing that, Elizabeth knew that nothing would stop the brown-haired boy, so she decided to be the innocent accomplice in all this. Although thinking about it better, she was the innocent accomplice in all this about 9 years ago, since the brown-haired boy was a little boy who had to play pranks. Time after. Flying at high speed, Issei would find himself almost above the clouds heading towards the village that was being attacked, so increasing his speed would obviously make him go faster, apart from releasing a shockwave, which only meant that he managed to overcome the sound barrier. Flying over the attacked area, the suit scanners would analyze the area, detecting a magical barrier which should be hiding what was happening inside, analyzing the best even some weak areas, which would show what was happening inside. Do you already know what you're going to do? Elizabeth asked, not very sure. Of course, Issei replied, heading over the magic barrier. And that's it? Elizabeth asked curiously. Make a heroic landing, Issei replied with a smile. What? The AI asked. Inside the magic barrier. Although the buildings were the same as what could be seen from the outside, what was happening inside was not a simple terrorist attack where several people with weapons killed, looted and captured people. What was happening inside was how several fallen angels, with demons, yakais and humans, all renegades, were entering the houses, forcibly removing the families that were inside. A demon with a human would take a family made up of the father and mother of the family, along with their 2 children, a boy and a girl. Both minors, probably about 10 or 13 years old. The children and the mother would be separated from the father, being taken to a larger group of people, while the father was taken to a smaller group which was made up of only men. Daddy, 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 the 2 brothers shouted as they watched their father being taken away. The father refused to let go of the demon's grip. He would go to hug his son who had freed himself from the mother's grip, but son and father would be forcibly separated, and then a yakai would take the son to the larger group, and the father would go for the same demon who was the leader of that attack, and the attack towards the test where bad events had happened, a certain brown-haired man. Who would make his entrance, while the demon kicked the father of the family. Where is that music coming from? The demon general asked himself, looking around and then looking up. What is that? He asked again, seeing what seemed to be an Iron Man. Landing with a crash, with one fist in his fist, one knee resting on it and the other foot on the ground, Issei landed in the typical heroic pose, the typical one of every hero, especially every certain man who has an S on his chest. Hello gentlemen, Issei greeted with a robotic voice before standing normally and firing his repulsor rays from his palms, sending the demon general flying as he pierced a brick wall. The second shot was aimed at the yakai holding the child, who was suddenly released when the yakai flew out, colliding with another supernatural being, leaving both unconscious. After that, Issei would clench his hands into a fist and then deploy his machine guns located on his forearms to then begin shooting at several supernatural beings that fell quickly. But before he finished with those who were in the exact area, some of them would take the peasants hostage, threatening them with their respective magic weapons, or in some with their own spells, while others were in a combat pose staring at Issei in his armor. "Not bad," Issei said, still maintaining his robotic voice, while the armor's visual interface began to mark who were enemies and who were not. After that, several non-explosive projectiles would be deployed from the shoulder pads of the armor, which were fired at the heads of the supernatural beings, killing them instantly. After that, Issei would turn around and then go to a brick wall, which had a hole above where the demon general entered. The same demon was resting on the wall because of the pain he felt at that moment. Invoking a magic circle, he would be willing to call his superiors for reinforcements, but before he did so, a robotic arm would break the wall, going through it, then grab him and pull him out, and then hit him hard against the ground. From the robotic arm that was the Mark 43 armor, extensions would come out that were placed on the demon's chest and then begin to move, leaving a rainbow-colored ink, which turned black, adhering to the demon's skin, as if it were a permanent tattoo. They had formed a drawing that consisted of a magic circle with a cross in the middle with a padlock in the middle of the cross. Next to that there were some runes surrounding the drawings and other patterns. What did you do?" asked a demon in pain. "I just block everything that makes you a demon. Let's say that now you are like a human without being one." At the same time, he gets up since he was crouching and looks at the peasants. "It's all yours," said Issei, before turning on the thrusters of his palms and feet, but before taking off he would be interrupted. "Who the hell are you?" the demon asked in pain and anger, staring at Issei. He would begin to think a little, then look up at the sky. Since he thought he didn't have a name, he had to have one related to the technology he uses, but calling himself the man of titanium, gold and so on, seemed ridiculous, so thinking about it better, he decided to go for another metal, the metal that the Mark 1 is made of. "Who am I?" Issei asked seriously, then turned to look at the demon. "I am Iron Man," Issei said, before taking off and heading to another area where there were more corrupted supernatural beings. Chapter 12. Short time. Narrator. Boom. An explosion sounded, caused by Issei carrying the Mark 43, firing a missile at a building inside the town where a group of supernatural beings were going, who were the ones making the magic barrier. After that, before Issei, and through the visual interface, a model of the magic dome would appear and how it was destroyed. After that, Issei would rise higher in the air looking down. All the supernatural beings dead and the villagers saved without any casualties, although there were injuries, but Issei's Stark Pines would take care of that later. Right now Iron Man had to retreat. Time after. Arriving and landing calmly, Issei would land in his garage, then open his armor and step out of it. Issei would be greeted by this entire fanfic's favorite AI. "You're crazy," said Elizabeth angrily. "You mean because of the landing?" Issei asked calmly as he began to walk to his workshop, followed by the Mark 43. "What do you think?" Elizabeth asked in response in a sarcastic tone. "That you are worried about me for the simple fact that you love me, not because I am the grandson of your creator, but because I am a friend of yours, a loved one, a family member," Issei said with a smile. "Stupid," said Elizabeth somewhat nervously, cutting off communication with the workshop. "And what virus bit her?" Issei wondered as he scratched his head, and the Mark 43 entered through a hidden door which was later closed. Analyzing the situation a little more, Issei would come to a conclusion, but he would shake his head from side to side, the idea that had come to his head seeming really stupid, so deciding to ignore what had happened, he left his workshop, going up some stairs and opening a door with a number board, meeting Nezuko in civilian clothes. Hello, Nezuko," Issei said somewhat nervously while a pink tint formed on his cheeks. Are you okay, Issei-kun? You look red, do you have a fever?" Nezuko asked, placing her left hand on the brown-haired boy's forehead. "Damn, it's so close," Issei thought, a little more nervous to get away from the black-haired girl. "I'm fine, Nezuko. I'm just a little hot," Issei said, moving his hands from one side to the other. Are you sure?" Nezuko asked, not very sure. Yes I am, I just have to freshen up and that's it, so I'll be in my room if you need anything," said Issei, heading to the aforementioned place, leaving a thoughtful Nezuko behind him. "HMNP, something is hiding from me, what could it be?" thought Nezuko as she watched the brown-haired boy leave. A few seconds later, Issei would arrive at his room and approach the window to look at the lake in front of his home. Letting out a sigh, "It would be better for you to wait a few hours before helping that village," Issei said quietly, not knowing that a certain artificial demon was listening to him on the other side of the door. "Help that town?" "Which town? What are you hiding, Issei-kun?" thought Nezuko, suspecting the brown-haired man. Breaking news, Issei Pines just gave millions to a village outside the city. Why did Pins do this? Is he really a philanthropist? Some say that this little millionaire boy is a philanthropist, but let's see, he is a millionaire, right? They are always looking to be in the spotlight. Perhaps he did this because of the guilt he feels for having murdered his grandfather. This may be the end of Issei Pines. Letting out a sigh, Issei would change the channel, leaving the news list and entering the movie list, arriving right at the beginning of Godzilla the King of the Monsters. Just ignore the Issei-kun, they are just people looking to make money off your current status, said Nezuko, placing one of her hands on her friend's shoulder. Cough, for now, cough. I know Nezuko, he lets out a tired sigh. I just wish they would leave him alone, Issei said as he leaned back on the couch. I'll tell you again, just ignore them, but leaving that aside, I want to tell you something, Nezuko said as she watched Issei cover his eyes with his forearm. And that would be it? Issei asked normally. In a few months the registrations for the Kuo Academy will begin, and I want to ask you if, Nezuko said until Issei interrupted her. Yes, I will go to Kuo, I have a lot of time to spare apart from the fact that I'm getting a little lazy with online classes, Issei said, while removing his forearm from his eyes. Really? Nezuko asked surprised. Yes, a party smiles mischievously. I will spend more time with a certain favorite black-haired girl, said Issei, before receiving a small punch from Nezuko, who had a small blush on her cheeks. Cool, said Nezuko somewhat annoyed. That's how I am and I don't see you complaining all the time, Issei said in a funny way while winking his left eye at the pink-eyed girl who blushed a little more. Months later. Ready, Issei said in his personal workshop as he raised his left hand which held a new type of arc reactor. Congratulations, now you just need to replace the palladium with another source of power, Elizabeth said excitedly. Yes, that would be the last thing I want to do before the dance at Kuo Academy starts, Issei said with a tired smile. Speaking of Kuo, don't forget that you promised Nezuko to enroll you in the academy, Elizabeth informed. Yes, I didn't forget about that, Issei said before leaving the arc reactor on the table. After that he would get up from the chair where he was sitting and then start heading towards the exit of his personal workshop, but he would fall to the floor while coughing up blood. Issei, Elizabeth shouted as she sent a robot towards Issei. Should he adjusts his shirt hiding some black veins that almost reach his neck? I have little time, Issei continued speaking, while he was helped up by the same robot that Elizabeth used to change the arc reactor in his chest before I die, Issei finished saying with a tone of frustration. Chapter 13 Confrontation and Solution. You have to find a solution for this or write your will, said Elizabeth. Thanks for the last option, one I don't plan on taking until I'm 87 years old, Issei said as he stood up straight. I doubt you'll reach that age, Elizabeth said as she controlled a robot that began to clean up the blood. Issei coughed up. I will succeed with the extrema, said Issei as he walked to a table and took a bracelet. Which of the two? The one you use for armor or the one you are making to improve current medicine, Elizabeth asked. But both, the one with the armor has better physical and mental capacity through transhumanism and medical extremism for better physical health and a longer lifespan, Issei responded as he put on the bracelet under Elizabeth's watchful gaze. Isn't it the Mark 51, the AI asked curiously. If that's so, Issei answered as he pressed a button on the bracelet and a kind of scales began to extend from the wrist where the bracelet was and would begin to reorganize quickly forming the shape of armor. Iron Man online and ready, Issei said as the suit's interface lit up. I never understood why you made the Mark 51 first and not the 50, added Elizabeth. It was easier for me to do this than the Mark 50 nanoparticles, Issei answered as he began to walk to his garage. What will you do? Elizabeth asked Issei directly. I'll go to where all my grandfather's research is, there has to be something there that can help me, Issei responded as he reached the garage and turned on his thrusters, thus beginning to rise. Do you want me to do something? Elizabeth asked. If you activate the drones in the area and scan it, make sure there are no intruders, Issei ordered as he flew through the tunnel that led to his garage and left it flying towards the sky. Time after. Arriving at the ruins of the previous town, Issei would be able to see a small battle between machines controlled by Elizabeth and enemy supernatural beings, perhaps they are from the Chaos factions. Elizabeth, play the music, Issei said with a smile as he headed to the ground to make his heroic entrance. All the machines stopped attacking and only defended themselves, that confused the supernatural, but some began to trust themselves to think that they would win, but at that moment they would hear music. Landing heavily on the ground, Issei skidded, sending a demon and a human flying with two energy blasts fired from his repulsors, located in the palms of his hands. The plates on his left arm would extend and rearrange themselves, forming a blade with which he stabbed a yokai, then reform the structure of his arms, forming long-distance weapons. Beginning to shoot both bullets and bursts of energy, the supernatural beings would begin to fall dead to the ground of dirt and rubble. One by one Issei was killing them, some came quite close to him, to which they began a hand-to-hand combat where Issei won, thanks to the power of the armor's strength. Added to the fact that it created short stabbing weapons which he used to inflict more damage on his enemy. Passing some time later, Issei and Elizabeth would be finishing off the few enemies that remained, but at that moment Issei would have to create a shield, thus preventing the blade of a spear from killing him. Deflecting the trajectory of the spear, he would undo the shield, thus seeing his attacker. "And you are?" Issei asked directly to his attacker Elizabeth. "Who is this guy?" Issei asked again, now directly to Elizabeth. According to civil records, his name is Cao Cao, a human being who was supposed to have disappeared from the map, Elizabeth reported. "Great, I guess the spear is his sacred gear," Issei said, and then held the tip of the spear and pulled, thus attracting Cao Cao towards him. Hitting the black-haired man in the jaw, he would knock out some of his teeth, but he would lose his grip on the spear when he was sent flying by a kick from Cao Cao. He recovered and looked at Iron Man with annoyance, while spitting out some blood. "Damn bastard, now you'll see," said the black-haired man, throwing himself at Issei, who would receive him with 2 repulsor rays, sending Cao Cao into the sky. After that he would turn on the thrusters on his feet and go straight towards the black-haired man. Once he reached him he would give him a hammer blow, throwing him towards the ground. After that he would fire his 2 palm repulsors at Cao Cao again, thus increasing his falling speed. After that he would go straight towards the black-haired man, holding him a few meters from the ground and causing him to crash into him. All of this caused great serious damage to the black-haired man, who had several broken bones. Issei was quick to react and, having acted quickly, managed to finish off his opponent quickly. "I've analyzed it, it's 100% human," Elizabeth reported. "Oh, 100% human, and you hold on, I lead you like a champion," said Issei, lifting the black-haired man by the collar of his clothes. "Damn, bastard, who the hell are you?" asked Cao Cao, badly wounded. "I am the one who ended the attack on that village a few months ago. You, the Chaos Brigade, created me. I am the Man of Steel. I am Iron Man, a philanthropist and millionaire." With a great temper Issei responded, but when he least expected it something hit him in the side, sending him flying and crashing into a wall, which went through him. A few seconds later, Issei gets up and heads to the wall he went through, passing through the hole that was formed. He would return to the battlefield where there were only broken combat and defense robots. Letting out a sigh, Issei would go directly to the Pines building where he would enter it. "Look on the bright side, nowadays technology defeated magic," said Elizabeth animatedly. At that Issei Solaria gave a small laugh. "Yes, I think you're right," Issei said a little more animatedly. As time passed, Issei and several robots controlled by Elizabeth would be investigating Stan Pine's own research. Several elements were in the place, but none were what they needed. Most would have the same effect as palladium, others simply some were not compatible, or simply did not work. This only worried Elizabeth more and made Issei somewhat desperate. Both of them had almost seen all the elements, they only had about 5 left. "Nothing," Issei said after taking off his armor helmet and sitting in front of the wall. "Issei," Elizabeth said quietly. She was worried. Controlling a robot she would walk towards Issei, placing one of her hands on the brown-haired man's shoulder. "No, there's nothing." "Looks ahead, there's nothing." "1 second, what's that?" Issei asked, getting up and starting to walk to a table that had a model covered by a sheet. "Bipolar," Elizabeth said, making sure that Issei wouldn't hear her. Holding the sheet, he would pull it aside, thus revealing the model of a city, which was identified by Issei. "Come on, these are the plans my grandfather had for the town turned into a model," said Issei, looking with surprise at the model that appears in Iron Man 2. "I'm not putting an image since I don't have one. Mr. Pines created it when you were 10 years old. He said that you would do great things with it, but I didn't understand something he said," Elizabeth reported, watching as Issei looked at the model analytically, managing to see something that not even the AI could see. "And what did he say that you didn't understand?" Issei asked. "That you would find your birthday present in the model," said Elizabeth, still not understanding what Stan was talking about. "I think I know what my grandfather was talking about. This is exactly what I need," said Issei with a smile, being seen by a confused Elizabeth. "And what was he talking about?" "For exactos," Elizabeth asked. "It's simple, Eli, but I still prefer to show you," Issei said as he put his charge back on and it turned on. "Okay, show me how quickly, since tomorrow is Nezuko's dance," said Elizabeth, to which Issei. "Demons," Issei said under his breath. Chapter 14 Salvation. Storyteller. Arriving at his grandfather's mansion through a portal contained in a hidden room. Issei, along with some drones controlled by Elizabeth, would pass through the arch of a door, arriving at a room where all the brown-haired man's armor is located. More or less like that, but full of armor. The part that would open at the top would be the direct exit, camouflaged with the design of a helicopter landing site. Ignoring them and walking to another door while the drones were carrying the model of the city in their hands, the door would have allowed the group to pass into the brown-haired man's personal workshop. "Put the model on the middle table," Issei ordered while the armor he was wearing returned to the bracelet on his right wrist. "Aye, Captain," said Elizabeth jokingly, brushing aside her brown hair and going to place the model on a circular table in the center of the workshop. "Oh, how funny," Issei said with a smile as he approached the table. "Now can you digitize it?" Issei asked as the model began to be analyzed and copied by Elizabeth. Of course I can, the question is if I want to do it, Elizabeth replied, projecting a physical hologram of the model in front of Issei. Thank you, Issei thanked calmly as he took the hologram and took it to a clearer area of the workshop. What will you do? Elizabeth asked curiously. Rediscover an element I guess, Issei replied, placing the hologram vertically. How? Elizabeth asked confused. You'll see. By the way, what do you think this is? Issei asked while pointing at the Ionosphere. I don't know, but it looks like an atom, Elizabeth replied, analyzing the situation. Highlight it, that has to be the core, Issei said as the Ionosphere grew larger. And now? Elizabeth asked, waiting for some order. Remove the paths, no better than to eliminate them directly, said Issei, while making a movement with his hands and the paths disappeared. Eliminate the gardens and flower pots, the trees, said Issei, while making some movements with his hands, and the aforementioned objects disappeared. Anything else? Elizabeth asked. Remove the parking lots, exits, entrances, now structure the protons and neutrons using the pavilions as a framework, Issei ordered while Elizabeth fulfilled the order. It is comfortable for you if what was said in the Ionosphere. And now, Issei began to say as he took the hologram construct and raised his arms upwards, and all the holographic atoms were placed around him. At that, Issei smiled happily, seeing what he achieved without being present. You are still giving me classes, said Issei, while attracting all the holograms, forming a sphere in his right hand. The element is the one indicated to replace palladium, but it is impossible to synthesize it, Elizabeth said sadly at the end. HMNP, well, we'll have to do some remodeling, let's synthesize it, Issei said as he headed to a door where he had tools. Ultra epic scene change. Picking up speed, Issei would hit a wall with a hammer they use for construction, then he would do the action again, managing to break the wall, but not completely. He would have continued, but he was tired. Damn, I have to exercise more, said Issei leaning on the wall. Elizabeth, bring hitter here, please, asked Issei. Some time later he would hear some metallic footsteps, it being the Mark 25. Break this wall while I go do what's next, Issei said as he left the place. Change of scene. Now having a demolition hammer in his hands, Issei would be drilling the floor of the room. Luckily for him, that day Nezuko would be with Melina all the time looking for a dress for the dance. Once she finished breaking the floor, she would remove all the rubble, revealing the metal box. I never understood why this was down here. If it's to control the electricity of the place, it's supposed to be in the basement, Issei said as he opened it. Do we have a basement? Elizabeth asked confused. If we have it, you don't know why there are no cameras there. I'll put one there later, Issei said, and then began to connect some cables. Time after. Drilling into the floor of the room and breaking it, Issei would pull out some cables. After that he would go down to where one of his armor would be, bringing a large wooden box. Approaching it he would open it, showing some tubes. Time after. All the tubes were already in place. Issei was adjusting some parts. At that moment Sakura would enter, looking at the place confused. Hello, Issei greeted as he finished what he was doing and saw if it was level, which it wasn't. I saw that you came back to the village, said Sakura approaching the brown-haired boy, but she saw something that surprised her. If that was, I don't know, about 3 years. Where were you? Issei answered, still looking for something. I was doing things, Sakura replied as she took in her hands the structure of a shield with a white star in the middle that was missing a point. Yeah, I was doing things too, Issei said, frustrated. Do you know what this is? Sakura asked as she showed him the shield. Yes, I know what it is, and it's exactly what I need. Could you pass it to me, please? Issei asked so that the bicolor would then give him the shield. What do you want it for? I asked curiously. Help me lift this, he said while holding the tube and using force to lift it. Sakura would do the same and lift it more easily than Issei. In a quick movement Issei would place the shield as a base under the tube. Let it fall, said Issei while Sakura asked for it, then she would check if it was level, perfectly level. She looked at Sakura. Do you need something? Asked Issei curiously, looking at the bicolor. No, I just came to tell you that I'll be away for an indefinite amount of time, she replied, looking at the brown-haired man. Ah, I see, well I hope everything goes well for you, and that nothing bad happens to you, said Issei with a smile which was reciprocated by another from the bicolor. Same here, Sakura said as she heads for the door. Same here, Stark, the bicolor girl said as she left the brown-haired man's workshop, leaving him surprised on the spot. Why are you surprised? After all, she is your lawyer, said Elizabeth, making Issei come out of his state of surprise. If you're right, it would be better to start with this, Issei said as he took a key and headed to the middle, where the tubes meet in a circle. In the middle there was a small table, with a metal ring attached to several cables on top of a base. The ring had an upside-down equilateral triangle in the middle. Time after. Having already done everything he needed, Issei would take the same key again, and then put it in a valve. Activate what Elizabeth Issei ordered, to which the AI would carry out the order. Prismatic accelerator activated, Elizabeth said as all the lights in the mansion went out and a laser passed through the center of the tubes, making a screech. It's already at maximum energy, Issei, Elizabeth reported, to which, adjusting the key, Issei would begin to turn the valve, which had a rectangular prism below. With difficulty he would manage to direct the ray through the Prima. While he pulled, the ray was destroying everything that crossed its path, regardless of what material it was made of until it reached the triangle. Managing to position the ray in the center of the triangle, it would begin to absorb all the energy directed at it. Quickly pressing a switch, Issei would cut off the flow of energy. Once that was done, and the laser stopped, Issei would see the triangle that constantly emitted a blue light, so passing under the tubes, he would approach the table in the middle, taking a clamp and holding the triangle. It was easy, Issei said calmly looking at the element he created. After that he would approach a table where an arc reactor was waiting for him, so he would carefully place the new element in the center of the reactor, which would then snap shut. The arc reactor accepted the new element. Now we should do some analysis, said Elizabeth, but at that moment Issei would cough up blood, worrying the AI. There's no time, Eli, Issei said as he took the new arc reactor in his hands, ready to exchange it for the old one. So taking off the old one, he would put the new one on his chest and then give it a little hit, thus activating it. After that the reactor would shine, while Issei breathed somewhat agitated and without him realizing it, and neither Elizabeth, in the irises of his eyes a blue glow appeared. Chapter 15 The Dance and Dot. Storyteller. I don't know, but I think I feel better than ever, Issei said after about 3 hours of putting on the new arc reactor. Okay, but still, don't put on any armor until I finish the analysis, Elizabeth ordered something serious, to which Issei only got confused. Why? Issei asked confused. Because the armor would begin to take away energy from the new arc reactor, and I still don't know 100% how the new element works, Elizabeth responded while seeing the analysis of the element built by Issei. Eli, plausibly the armor has its own arc reactor, and as I realize I would have to change the old reactor powered by palladium to the new arc reactor powered by the new element, Issei reported somewhat thoughtfully. By the way, I think you should give the new element a name, since calling it new element is a bit awkward, Elizabeth said, to which Issei would get up from the chair he was sitting on. For now we will call it arc, then we will give it a specific name, Issei said finishing his sentence, but as he did so he would hear a scream coming from the living room of the mansion. What the hell happened here? Nezuko and Melina shouted in unison, seeing the destroyed floor. You know, sometimes Melina will be so in a way that she seems like your partner, Elizabeth informed. Nah, it has to be because it's old, said Issei heading to the hidden room where his armor was. He was planning to hide and escape, then enter through the main door of the mansion and act stupid about the situation. The next day. I can't believe I have to use this, Issei said in front of a full mirror. Right now he was wearing a formal suit, most likely the only time he will wear it or go to a ball. Oh come on, it looks good on you, Elizabeth praised, she sounded excited. If you say so, Issei said not very convinced. Whatever, the nano machines are already ready in the workshop, Elizabeth reported. Okay, I'll just bring the cameras so you can inform me if they get close to me, Issei said somewhat seriously, heading to the door of his room. You mean Sarah and Canny? Elizabeth asked confused. If I'm referring to them, I don't want them to ruin Nezuko's night, Issei said leaving his room while putting a device on his left ear. What a gentleman, taking care of his date, Elizabeth joked forcedly. How funny, Issei said sarcastically as he got off an elevator. Don't be too cold, today you will have a date with a cute girl, Elizabeth tried to liven up the situation, which worked. Yes, I know, he leaves the elevator while having a small smile, it's just that I don't want those two to ruin it, said Issei entering a secret workshop that he owned. In the place you could see several parts of armor and more than one arc reactor, both old and 2 new ones. On a ring-shaped table in the middle of the room, there was a small, completely smooth and black box. Issei would take it and put it away among his clothes. After that he would leave the place and return to the upper floors, where he would walk a little until someone stopped him. I'm ready now, Issei-kun said Nezuko behind the brown-haired boy. Yes, I was just looking for you, Nezu, Issei said turning around, but when he saw the black-haired girl he remained silent, while a pink tint formed on his cheeks. Ahaha, Issei-kun, don't stare at me like that, said Nezuko, happy and at the same time somewhat embarrassed at the look her friend was giving her. It's kind of hard not to look at this beautiful flower, Issei said approaching the black-haired girl who approached the brown-haired boy. Wow, it seems there is a gentleman in the home, Nezuko joked watching Issei who took her hand in a delicate and careful way. That's right, and he's your crimson knight, Issei said jokingly as he gave the black-haired girl a small kiss on the hand, who blushed more than Issei was. Issei, Nezuko called the brown-haired boy, who looked her in the eyes. Yes. Nezuko-chan, Issei asked, looking into the pink eyes of his for now, friend. About to speak, Nezuko would be interrupted by Elizabeth, who projected herself as a hologram next to both teenagers. Sorry if I interrupted you, but you're running late, Elizabeth said somewhat seriously while showing the time to both of them. Yes, you're right, let's go, said Issei, taking one of Nezuko's hands and taking her to the garage where his car was waiting for him. Why yes, Nezuko said quietly, following Issei. Time after. Arriving at the Kuo Academy in their car, Issei and Nezuko would park in front of it, both could see the lights of the dance and hear the music. Some students accompanied by boys entered the academy with the intention of having a great time. Are you okay? I see you're nervous, Issei asked as he opened the door and gave Nezuko a hand to help her get out of the vehicle. Yes, it's just that it's my first dance, Nezuko informed somewhat nervously. After all, it's not every day that you go to a high school dance with a boy you really like. Calm down, it's no use being nervous, in fact that makes it worse, Issei informed, discreetly taking out the box of nano machines, which began to turn into dust, disappearing completely. Nano particles of wakefulness activated, Elizabeth reported from the communicator in the brown-haired man's left ear. At that, Issei would agree and then be taken by Nezuko into the academy. Time after. Being inside the academy, Issei and Nezuko would see more than one party dance. For each course, different parts of the academy buildings were being used for different dances or parties. That was something that surprised Issei, but he couldn't process much of the information when Nezuko pulled him to a basketball court which was larger than average. And what would you do first at these dances? Nezuko asked, somewhat embarrassed. Well, he looks around, then looks back at the black-haired girl and smiles. Normally you come to have a good time with the person you came with, talk to others, eat something and dance, hahaha, after all it's called dancing, right? Issei said with a smile and grace. Hahaha, you're right, said Nezuko with a beautiful smile that made the brown-haired boy blush. How did you spend your night? Shouted a pink-haired girl with light fuchsia eyes. She was on an improvised stage where all the musical instruments were placed, along with the speakers and other musical materials. Everyone nodded with a yes, which was shouted by almost everyone. I'm glad about that. Right now we're about to put on the latest music for the girls and their dates to dance to, so all you lazy bums get up and make the night special for your girls, the girl shouted again. After that some music would start playing. Shall we dance? Issei asked, extending his hand to the black-haired girl who blushed. What? Boo, but I don't know how to dance, said Nezuko nervously, and it was true, she was never interested in dancing, she didn't know how to do it and much less did she know the steps. Haha, don't worry, I'll guide you, Issei said with a warm smile, taking the black-haired girl's hand. Are you sure? Nezuko asked, not very sure. Yes, I'm sure of it, Nezuko Kamado said, Issei guiding the black-haired girl to the dance floor, which was the basketball court. This is the first time you've called me by my full name, Nezuko said, trying to calm down. Yes, after all, I'm not one of those who likes to call people by their last names, answered Issei, who although he didn't show it, was somewhat upset but would calm down little by little just like Nezuko. Yes, it's something that makes you special, said Nezuko looking into the brown-haired man's eyes while he guided her to dance. This will be the dance of Nezuko and Issei. Apart from that, if someone doesn't like the music above or on the side, for those who are watching this on the phone, they will have other music. Special? I didn't know it was special, Issei said as he spun Nezuko around, who released a small rosette. You're quite special, you know. Someone intelligent, handsome, charismatic, trustworthy and other things, although the one that stands out is that you will help everyone who cares about you and who you love or want, Nezuko responded with a smile. She was already getting used to the rhythm of the song and was understanding the dance that Issei was helping her dance. Yes, although I have my flaws, said Issei, making Nezuko spin around again. I know it, and that's why you're better than other people, knowing that you are someone incredible, you take into account your flaws, which doesn't allow you to let yourself be clouded or cut down by everything you have said, Nezuko following the brown-haired boy's steps. I say the same for you, you can ask me for anything you want and I won't refuse several things, it's something that someone would appreciate about you, you are beautiful, intelligent, charismatic, creative and happy, that among other things, like that you would help everyone who needs it, no matter what, haha. Obviously making yourself respected as the almost woman that you are, Issei said with a smile. He and Nezuko were calmly dancing to the rhythm of the music, ignoring the other students and their dates, who were also in their own worlds. Turning a little and then staying in a fixed place, both would continue dancing. At that moment a call would come from Elizabeth, causing a blue LED on the communicator to light up, making Nezuko look away a little seeing the light, but she would manage to see in the distance an albino girl crossing the entrance of the basketball court. But she managed to notice the tears she shed from her crimson eyes. Issei, turn around, said Nezuko, to which Issei would listen, managing to see the white-haired girl for a short time, but he managed to notice the same thing as Nezuko. But what? Issei asked himself quietly while listening to Elizabeth's message. Issei, there has been a problem and it is about Melina, Elizabeth reported. She sounded sad and sorry, at the same time something serious. Chapter 16, Heartbreak. Issei. This is bad, right? Well, I don't know, Nezuko and I had to leave the dance. We had recognized a person. It was Melina, our friend and my employee, well, almost my employee. I am not the owner of my company yet, and a friend of my grandfather is the one supervising it now. But leaving that aside, we managed to see her from a distance, so we went to her, and I admit that I thought she was beautiful because of the dress she was wearing. Damn, Issei, think about the Bible. So shaking my head without Nezuko noticing, we went to her, seeing that she was crying. Melina, what happened? I asked when I saw her in that state. She turned to look at us, and I noticed that her eyes were redder, and that her iris had formed tiny points and changed color to a dull red. Melina, what happened? I saw Nezuko ask her. She was worried about Melina, just like me. Melina just looked at us shedding tears, her face was furrowed. For a moment I thought she would raise her voice at us, but suddenly she took a while no. So acting quickly I caught her, so that later she would cry on my chest, after that I would speak. He cheated on me, said Melina in pain while she cried on my chest, and I admit that it hurt me to see her like that. Time after. Storyteller. Here you go, said Issei, handing a cup of tea to Melina. She was on an armchair in Issei's mansion, her pupils and iris returned to normal, but her eyes were red from crying so much. Nezuko was next to her comforting her. Thank you, Melina thanked, taking the cup, then taking a sip. The tea was soothing, and its flavor was something she loved. I'll be right back, I'm going to the bathroom, said Issei, receiving a nod from both women. After that, the brown-haired man would go to the bathroom, but he would deviate by going to his room, where he would enter, and Elizabeth would project herself in front of him. Eli, show me what happened, Issei asked, to which the AI, without saying anything, would project a video in front of the brown-haired man. Video. In the video you could see the different perspectives of the waking hand machines, each with their corresponding points of view. Some were attentive to Sarah and Canny. Sarah had come alone, and Canny was accompanied by Isaac. After a while Melina would arrive with her boyfriend. Something that Issei noticed was that Melina was with a radiant smile. From Issei's point of view, she looked beautiful, which caused a small pink tint to her cheeks. Some time later Melina would go to the bathroom, and her boyfriend Richard would see Sarah in the distance, so approaching her he would begin to flirt with her. Sarah would refuse at first, saying that she had a boyfriend, something that made Issei angry, but unfortunately she would end up accepting, and the rest is not necessary to tell. Sarah and Richard would go to a hidden place and do it there. Then Melina would look for her boyfriend where she would find him with Sarah having relations and then run away while crying, passing time, and that Elizabeth would add more scenes and progress further with the video. She would find more than one boy who was unfaithful to his girlfriend at the dance. And even more than one Sarah was the lover. End of video. Buck, Issei said, bringing his hands to his face. He couldn't believe what he had seen. God, are you angry? Elizabeth asked Issei. No, well, I don't know, damn it, because he sighs frustrated. Is she an nymphomaniac? Issei asked himself frustrated. Are you crying for her? Elizabeth asked Issei again. What? No, I'm not, I don't know, Issei replied, leaning against the wall and letting himself fall. Woman is the one who makes her partner smile, Hitch is the one who makes them cry. Issei Stark pines. You are crying for someone who does not deserve it, who did not know how to value what he once had. That is your love. If a woman were to have your love, I am sure she would be the happiest person in the world, said Elizabeth, softly and warmly through the device in the brown-haired woman's ear. I don't know, Issei said dejectedly, looking away. What are you? Elizabeth asked. I'm a human, a man to be exact, Issei replied simply. What is a man? Elizabeth asked. A man is a Issei said, but would be interrupted by Elizabeth. In the romantic term, fool, said Elizabeth somewhat angrily. Sorry, a man is the one who makes a woman smile, the one who makes her feel safe, and that both have the same confidence, being willing to be by her side, Issei responded, and then let out a sigh. What is an idiot? Elizabeth asked. An idiot is one who makes a woman cry for no reason, and out of mere whim, Issei responded simply. So? What would happen if you reject the girl who fell in love with you? Elizabeth asked seriously. I would cry, Issei replied, starting to get up. Then stop crying for someone who doesn't love you and go and make Melina stop crying. You and Nezuko, be the people who are there for her, Elizabeth said to Issei, who would shake the dirt off his clothes. And what about your relatives? Issei asked confused. Her parents and sister and other relatives live in another country or city, except for her uncle and aunt, but they died a few months ago, Elizabeth responded. How do you know that? Issei asked surprised. It's in her worker report, Elizabeth responded simply, while Issei left the room. Okay, that was weird, don't look at people's reports please, Issei said in a scolding tone. Even if you tell me, I'll do it anyway, Elizabeth responded childishly before cutting off communication with Issei. Eli, ah great, he cut off communication, said Issei and went to go to where Melina and Nezuko were. Time skip. You better stay, it's raining right now, said Issei, watching through a window as a storm had formed. It's not that bad, apart from that you could take me in your car, said Melina, arriving at Issei's side, but at that moment a thunder would fall in the distance, so she would hold on to the brown-haired man. You better stay, I don't want to die, said Issei with a poker face. Okay, Melina said quietly. Nezuko would approach the two of them to listen to their conversation. Well, if you're going to stay, you can't go to sleep with that dress on, so come with me, said Nezuko, quickly removing Melina from Issei, filling her room with her. Okay, said Melina, following the black-haired girl. I'll be in my workshop if you need me, Issei informed as he left the place, receiving a nod from the two. Arriving at his workshop, he would put the password on the number pad so that the door would then open and he would go through, closing the door behind him. What will you do? Elizabeth asked after becoming active and feeling the presence of the brown-haired man. Not much, I want to finish the Mark 50, and by finish I mean finish its two versions, Issei responded. In front of him, two holograms of two armors would be projected. After that, several holograms with data and figures, others with information and some plans would begin to appear, along with a large list of materials. I'm ready to create them now, Issei said with a small smile. You know, I like the nanotechnology one better, Elizabeth informed, paying more attention to the Mark 50 nanoparticles. I know it too, that's why I will create more than one. There is more potential in nanotechnology than in smart metal, but that does not take away the fact that smart metal will be my greatest achievement. Now all that's left is to build them, said Issei, and then turned to look at some containers. Time after. While in his room, Issei would hear someone knocking on his room door, to which he would say come in, and Melina would enter the room. Issei didn't say anything, he just stared at Melina, who didn't care about her friend's gaze. After a few seconds the two looked into each other's eyes. Issei knew what was happening, so he patted an unoccupied part of the bed, to which Melina would approach and sit on the spot. Can't you sleep? Issei asked, to which Melina would deny, then he would sit next to her. No. Melina replied, hugging her legs and pressing them against her torso. Are you okay? Issei asked, already knowing the answer. No, much less that, Melina replied, shrugging her shoulders, her eyes crystallized. I know how you feel, Issei informed in a whisper audible to the albino. You don't know how I feel, Melina said, annoyed in a somewhat low tone. You're right, it's not like my girlfriend has been unfaithful to me with several people, and I'm trying to commit suicide because of it, Issei responded, also annoyed, in a low tone. Sorry, I forgot, said Melina regretfully. It's okay, said Issei, hugging her, being reciprocated by the white-haired woman. What did you do when this happened to you? Melina asked sadly in a low voice. I tried to move on, to forget her, Issei replied. How can I forget the man who made me smile every time he was with me? Melina asked, her eyes beginning to shed tears. I tell you the truth, she nods, I never forgot her, she is still in my mind, but I ignore it and look for the affection of others, formerly my grandfather and Tanjiro, and now you and Nezuko, are what make me forget about her sometimes. To overcome this, you have to look for someone to help you, said Issei calmly, tightening the grip of the hug a little, which was also made by Melina to feel that. It won't be easy for me to get over it, said Melina, still shedding tears and in a hurt tone. And I'm not over Sarah yet, and look at me, he smiled, I don't cry for someone who doesn't deserve it, Issei said with a small smile. It's easy to say when they cheated on you over a year ago, Melina said jokingly, making Issei feel a little. You're right, said Issei, still smiling. After that he would tighten the grip of the hug, which was also done by Melina. After all that, they both remained silent, calm, being comforted by the presence of the other. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.